Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the September 15th, 2020 meeting of the Hillsborough County Zoning Hearing Master. My name is James Scarola, and I'm going to be the hearing officer for the evening. What we'll do to get things up and running tonight, first I'm going to ask our staff if there's any changes to the agenda. So listen carefully in case anything you're interested in is involved. And after that, I'll go through a quick set of procedures with you on how we'll conduct the hearing, and then we'll move right on into it. So with that, I'd like to introduce to you Mr. Brian Grady of Development Services Department. Good evening, Brian.
Good evening, Mr. Scarola. Again, for the record, Brian Grady, Hillsborough County Development Services Department. We have one change to the published agenda. That's on page 6 of the agenda. Item D6 is rezoning application PD 20-0330. The applicant is Potomac Land Company. The applicant is requesting a continuance to the October 19, 2020 zoning hearing master hearing. The applicant is here to explain the reasons for the requested continuance.
Okay, is the applicant here? It's PD 20-0330.
Yes, William Sullivan, 1350 Orange Avenue, Suite 201, Winter Park, Florida, 32789.
Thank you.
The reason we are asking for a continuance is we had a meeting, a Zoom meeting with the HOA to the north of the property, and they wanted an additional entrance out onto Harney, not onto Harney, but onto Tom Folsom Road, so that they felt that, because they thought all their trips were going through their property, so we wanted to accommodate them. And in return, they're going to do us a letter of support of the project, and it'll take away all the objections. So that's why we're doing that, so that the staff can analyze the additional entrance as well.
Thank you very much for that. Anybody else interested in this continuance request? This is rezoning, item D6 on the agenda, rezoning 20-0330. I see none. That'll be continued to the 10/19/2020 meeting.
Mr. Sullivan, I need you to come in and sign in with me.
It's over here, right over here.
Oh, well, gotta get used to this. This is all.
Thank you.
And now I'll go through the published withdrawal and continuances. On page 4 of the agenda, we just have one item. That's item A1, rezoning standard 20-0358. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the October 19, 2020 zoning hearing master hearing. That concludes all withdrawals and continuances.
Okay, and ladies and gentlemen, that was at the top of page 4 of your agenda. So not much to change on our agenda. Now, with respect to our procedures tonight, with regards to our rezoning requests on the agenda, the Land Development Code requires that a public hearing be conducted by a land use hearing officer prior to a final decision by the Board of County Commissioners. The hearing officer does not make the final decision, but instead renders a recommendation to the board, who makes the final decision at their public hearing. This hearing is generally going to be informal. Questioning will be confined as closely as possible to the scope of direct testimony. And what that means basically is when you come forward, you'll just be speaking directly to me. As the hearing officer, I'll call and question witnesses as necessary and appropriate, and I'll be deciding all questions on procedure. Irrelevant, immaterial, or unduly repetitious evidence is going to be excluded. Any part of your evidence may be received in written form. All of your testimony tonight is going to be under oath. Hearsay evidence may be used for the purpose of supplementing or explaining other evidence, but it won't be sufficient in itself to support a finding unless it would be admissible over objections in a civil action. So having said that, the basic order of presentation will be as follows. You'll hear staff introduce each petition, and the applicant and any of their witnesses can come forward, and there'll be a time period of up to 15 minutes set aside to present the application and any supporting evidence. At that point, I'll turn to Development Services, and I'll ask for a summary of their staff report, and they'll do that in a period of about 5 minutes. At that point, I'll then turn to the Planning Commission and ask for a statement of compliance or non-compliance with the comprehensive plan, and also they'll have 5 minutes to do so. Then I'll see if there's any proponents in the audience. Proponents are not the applicant or their team again. Instead, they're other parties who might be supporting the petition, and there'll be a time period of up to 15 minutes set aside for any proponents. Similarly, at that point, I'll turn and ask for opposition. If there's any opposition testimony that needs to be placed on the record, we'll set aside a period of up to 15 minutes for that opposing testimony. And then when that's all over with, I'll turn to staff to see if there's any changes to their recommendations or comments based on the testimony received. And lastly, the applicant will have an opportunity for a final rebuttal, and that'll be for a period of 5 minutes. A couple of tips for you, especially for proponents and opponents. If there's many of you, I suggest you try to appoint a principal speaker. If you don't, I'm going to see how many need to speak and divide up that 15 minutes as we need to. So it's always best to plan ahead with that. When you come to the microphone, or when you speak, make sure you're talking directly into the microphone and keep it close to your mouth, because there's a record being established and we need to make sure we pick you up, that everybody can hear you, including me. Always say your name and address when you come to the front first. Name and address before you go to speak. If for whatever reasons you sit down and we all agree that you need to speak again, no need to repeat the address, but you definitely always need to, if you step away from the microphone, you've got to say your name before you go to speak so that the record knows who is speaking. Always speak clearly into the microphone, and when you're all done, Allison on my right, as I'm pointing over here, has a sign-in sheet. And so you'll go from the podium over to Allison's right side, and there's a sign-in sheet there. Just sign it, and that'll complete your submittal of testimony and evidence. At this point, I'm going to turn, we have an assistant county attorney available who's going to explain to you the legal requirements for oral argument that govern your participation in front of the Board of County Commissioners. So, Mr. Clark, are you out there?
Good evening, Mr. Scarola. Good evening. My name is Cameron Clark. I'm an assistant county attorney. Tonight's public hearing is the first step of a two-step rezoning process. This hearing is a time for rezoning applicants and interested parties to present testimony and evidence. Any evidence presented tonight will become the complete factual record of each application, and no additional evidence can be introduced after the closing of each application. The second step of the rezoning process is a public meeting before the Board of County Commissioners, where the board will take a decision on each application heard tonight. Tonight's applications are scheduled to be heard by the board at its November 10th, 2020 land use meeting. When considering applications, the board will only review the record created at tonight's hearing and the recommendation made by the hearing master for each application. The hearing master will file a recommendation for each application heard tonight on October 6th. Any party of record wishing to address the board at its public meeting must execute and submit a request for oral argument form explaining why oral argument is necessary. Requests for oral argument must be responsive to the hearing master's recommendation. Therefore, such request cannot be filed until after the hearing master has submitted his recommendation to the county on October 6th. Following this date, any party wishing to address the board at its public meeting will have 10 days to submit a request for oral argument to the clerk to the Board of County Commissioners. Therefore, for tonight's applications, if you wish to address the board at its November 10th land use meeting, you must file your request for oral argument between October 6th and the close of business on October 16th. While the board is not required to hear oral argument at its public meeting, the board can elect to hear oral argument from a party of record. A party of record is an individual who fits into at least one of the following four categories. First, someone who is present tonight and presents testimony or documentary evidence. Second, someone who is certified by the U.S. Postal Service as having been mailed notice of tonight's hearing. Third, someone who submitted documentary evidence to the master file at least 2 business days prior to tonight's hearing. Or fourth, someone who submitted documentary evidence by proxy at tonight's hearing. Should the board elect to hear oral argument, parties of record will be eligible to address the board if their requests for oral argument are responsive to the hearing master's recommendation, and if they clearly set forth why oral argument is necessary to address at least one of the 4 outstanding issues that are laid out in Section 10.03.04E of the Land Development Code. If the board elects to hear oral argument, the content of that argument shall be limited to the content of the testimony and other evidence that is submitted verbally or in writing to the hearing master tonight. It is the role of the county attorney's office to ensure that only individuals who have met these requirements are allowed to speak before the board, and to ensure that no new evidence or testimony is introduced or allowed at the board's public meeting. For these reasons, Please make sure that all information you wish the board to consider at the public meeting is entered in tonight's record. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. So ladies and gentlemen, if you plan to speak tonight or present any evidence, I can arise now with me and raise your right hand, please. You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Thank you.
I do.
All right, Brian, I think with that, we're ready for our first petition.
The first item is agenda item C1, rezoning application standard 20-0797. The applicant is Joseph A. Spokola, trustee. The request is rezoned from planned development to RSC 6, residential single family conventional 6. I'll provide staff recommendation after presentation by the applicant.
Okay, and the applicant, please. Good evening.
Joseph Spicola Jr., 11708 Casey Road, Tampa, Florida, 33618.
Feel free to grab that mic, pull it up so you don't have to crouch over it.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. So what we're trying to achieve is we had rezoned the property back in 17 to from RSC 6 to PD. We were planning on selling the property, and just with the way everything's going, we're want to go back to revert to the RSC 6 so that I can build a house on the property with my parents being there. We have my brother's handicapped and my parents are getting older, so it makes sense for me to be there to help out. So that's what we're trying to achieve.
Thank you for your testimony. Okay, and development services.
Brian Grady, Hillsborough County Development Services. The request is to rezone a 4.4 acre parcel from planned development to RSC 6 residential single family conventional. The parcel is located at the northwest corner of the intersection of Casey Road and Jackson Road. Presently, the parcel is approved for planned development for a maximum of 15 lots with a minimum lot size of 5,000 square feet. RSC 6 zoning districts are located adjacent to the northwest and east of the subject parcel. To the south is a planned development approved for single-family conventional lots and development standards with similar lot sizes to the RSC 6 zoning district. The development standards for the proposed RSC 6 zoning district are the same as or more restricted than the development standards of existing planned development. The rezoning from RSC 6 from planned development to RSC 6 will afford the applicant more design flexibility with respect to any future subdivision of property. Nonetheless, any subdivision will be still subject to compliance with all applicable regulations of the Land Development Code. Based on the analysis of the surrounding development pattern and comparisons of the existing development standards of the PD versus the RSC 6, staff does find the request compatible with the existing zoning and development pattern area, and don't have any questions.
Okay, I don't have any, but thank you, Brian. And the planning commission, please.
Thank you, Melissa Leinhardt, Planning Commission staff. The subject property is located in the residential 4 future land use category. The site is located in the urban service area and also within the limits of the Greater Carrollwood Northdale Community Plan. The proposed rezoning meets the intent of Objective 1 of the future land use element of the comprehensive plan by providing growth within the urban service area. Policy 1.2 of the future land use element requires a minimum density to be met unless the site qualifies for an exception as noted in future land use policy 1.3. The future land use category of the site is residential 4 and has a wetland on site that would meet the exception to minimum density under that policy. The proposal also meets the compatibility requirements of policy 1.4 as the predominant character of the area is single family residential dwellings and is already surrounded by RSC 6 zoning districts. The proposed rezoning meets the intent of Objective 16 and the compatibility policies under that objective regarding neighborhood protection, mitigation, and compatibility. The area is surrounded by low-density single-family residential uses. According to Policy 16.10, compatibility does not mean the same as, rather it refers to the sensitivity of development proposals and maintaining the character of existing development. While this existing residential use and proposed addition is a lower density than the surrounding neighborhoods, an RSC 6 zoning would be compatible with the existing zoning districts in the surrounding community. The community design component in the future land use element provides policy direction In Goal 12, Objective 12-1 and Policy 12-1.4 that requires development to relate to the predominant and established character of the surrounding area. As the surrounding land use pattern is low-density residential, the proposed rezoning is compatible and related to the established character of the area. The request is also consistent with Goal 2 of the Greater Carrollwood-Northdale Community Plan and its accompanying strategies which seek to preserve the suburban character of the community through compatibility and various design techniques. Based upon those considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed rezoning consistent with the Future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Anybody here tonight in support of this request? Anybody in support? Seeing none, is there any opposition to the request? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I saw your hand kind of go up, so I wasn't sure whether you were
I
raising.
couldn't hear, I'm sorry.
That's all right. In support or in opposition?
Opposition.
Yes, sir.
Peter Toth, my residential address is 11729 Carrollwood Cove Drive. I reside in the community that's directly behind their property almost on Jackson Road. A little dwelling there that's been there for about 20 years.
Are you directly adjacent to it?
Not adjacent directly, but about maybe half mile to the west.
Okay.
Previously, about a year or two ago, they tried to apply for rezoning then, and at that time they were going to build a retirement home or center there. Our concern, and let me also state that I represent the HOA. I'm here on their behalf.
Of which?
The Carrollwood Cove HOA.
Okay. Are you an officer?
Not this year, but I was last year.
Do you have any form of authorization that you're representing them?
Not written, but I can get it to you via email later. Okay, then bypass that. My apologies. Going back to my argument, they had requested a rezoning to have a retirement center built there previously, and when all the HOAs nearby were against it at the time. Our concern is that should this rezoning be given to them, that they'll later on try to maneuver into that same position to where they'll sell the property and try to build either townhomes or a nursing home again. So that is why I'm in opposition to that. The other concern is with the current zoning that they have, aren't they able to already build another home there? I mean, I thought they had a RSC 2.
So, sir, I can take your testimony
Okay.
All day long, just
Of course. Well, it's my understanding that they can already build a home there on property without rezoning. So, and that's all.
all right. Thank you for your testimony. Anybody else in opposition tonight? Okay, seeing none. Anything from staff?
I would just note under the current PD zoning is permitted single-family homes. Under the RSC 6, they would not be permitted to do townhomes or a nursing facility or assisted living facility of the size that was previously requested. Just want to put it on the record.
Okay, thank you for that, Brian. And then the applicant will have an opportunity for a final rebuttal. And if you have anything, sir. No? Okay. Want to make sure. Nothing? All right. With that, we'll close rezoning 20-0797.
The next item is agenda item C2, rezoning application standard 20-0922. The applicants are Carolyn and Daniel Ribbelin. The request is rezoned from AR agricultural rural to agricultural single family 1, which provides for a minimum lot size of 1 acre. I will provide staff recommendation after presentation by the applicant.
Good evening.
Hi,
How are you?
for the record, Patricia Ortiz, I'm good, thank you. Patricia Ortiz, 2810 North Central Avenue, Tampa, 33602. I am representing the applicant, and this is a very straightforward request. Would like to rezone from the current zoning of AR to AS1, and this was brought upon by the applicant wanting her mother to live closer by. So our intent is to split off a 1 acre lot through the certified subdivision process, build a single family home, and that's kind of the end of the story. This request is consistent with the comp plan. It complies with the regulation of the LDC, and it's compatible with the area. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I don't, but thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And development services, please.
Brian Grady, Hillsborough County Development Services. The request is rezone a 9.33 acre parcel from agricultural rural AR to AS1 agricultural single family. The parcel is located on the north side of Nichols Road, approximately 1,200 feet east of the intersection of Keysville Road and Nichols Road. The surrounding area contains a mix of agricultural, rural, agricultural single-family, and agricultural single-family conventional zoning districts. To the south across Nichols Road is a single-family subdivision zoned ASC1. Immediately to the west and east are parcel zone AR, and to the north is parcel zone AM, agricultural mining. The AS1 and ASC1 zoning districts in the area have the same development standards in terms of minimum lot sizes and lot widths and setbacks. The only difference between the two districts is that AS1 district permits manufactured homes while the ASC1 zoning district does not. The current AR zonings and AM zonings in the area permit manufactured homes. The larger surrounding area to the east, southeast, south, and southwest within the residential 1 future land use designation contains AS1 and ASC1 zone parcels mixed in with adjacent to AR zone parcels. Therefore, the rezoning of the subject parcel from AR to AS1 would be consistent with the existing zoning pattern of the area. Therefore, staff finds the request approvable. I'm available for any questions.
Okay, I don't have it, but thank you, Brian. And the planning commission, please.
Thank you. Melissa Leinhardt, Planning Commission staff. The subject property is located in the residential 1 future land use category. It is in the rural area and it is not located within the limits of a community plan. According to Objective 4 of the future land use element of the comprehensive plan, 20% of the growth in the region will occur in the rural area. The subject site is in the rural area and the proposal therefore meets the intent of Objective 4 and Policy 4.1 of the future land use element by preserving a low-density rural residential development pattern. Objective 16 and its accompanying compatibility policies seek to protect existing neighborhoods and development by ensuring compatibility with the surrounding area through various buffering requirements and mitigation techniques. Policy 16.8 specifically requires the density and lot sizes of the surrounding area to be compatible with new development. The existing uses in the area are low-density, single-family, large lot residential dwelling, and also agricultural uses. Policy 16.10 states that any density increase shall be compatible with existing, proposed, or planned surrounding development. In this case, the surrounding area has existing AS1 zoning districts in the immediate vicinity and preserves the existing rural residential character of the area. The community design component of the future land use element provides policy direction regarding residential development in the rural area. Goal 7, Objective 7-1, and its accompanying policies seek to preserve rural residential areas as a viable alternative to urban and suburban areas. As the surrounding land use pattern is primarily agricultural and low-density rural residential, a rezoning request to allow AS1 would be compatible with the surrounding area and the existing development pattern. Based upon those considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed rezoning consistent with the Future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Anybody here tonight in support of this request? I see nobody. Is there any opposition to this request? Okay, Brian, anything else on that? Okay, and the applicant, anything else? With that, we'll close rezoning 20-0922.
The next item is agenda item D1, rezoning plan development 20-0090. The applicant is Bridget Wilson. The request is rezoned from agricultural single family 1 to plan development. Stephen Beachy with county staff will provide staff recommendation after presentation by the applicant.
Okay, and the applicant, please.
Oh,
Good evening.
sorry, before the applicant starts, just wanted to note that there was revisions to the transportation report, so I'll hand out revised transportation report and a revised staff report that incorporates those revisions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Good
Brian.
evening.
Mr. Hearing Officer, I have a PowerPoint for you. This is application 20-0090. Planning Commission notes consistent meets locational criteria. Development Services recommends support. We're located on Lithia Pinecrest, south of 60, north of Bloomingdale Avenue. A little closer, we're located right at the corner of Orange Walk and Lithia Pinecrest. Here's the aerial outlined in red per the property appraiser. This is a PD plan to convert a small residential home to nondescript, low-trip, small office. Site plan is submitted, parking lot, building location, no change of the building footprint or the structures. Only change really is the parking. And included is a 5-foot buffer waiver on the north, of which staff supports, or zoning staff supports. This is the view of the small home. Another view in terms of its orientation of the Pinecrest. This is a family-owned business, third generation small business. I'd like to introduce the owner, who will speak in a few moments. She's here today. This is important for them. She wanted to be here to have a few words with you. There'll be no trucks. There's no storage materials. It's just 1 or 2 employees. Site's used for minor office support. They have a field office located in Gibsonton for all the heavy activity. This is just administrative office. So there's no exterior changes other than improving the site and keeping it looking residential. They've been in business for a long time. They are members of a lot of associations and groups throughout the area, from Riverview to Fishhawk, South Shore, certified professional roofing contractors, licensed, bond insured. In the staff report, you'll see that there are quite a few of operational restrictions on the use, limiting parking of commercial vehicles and storage of roofing materials. Operating hours are limited. There's no hours permitted between 9 p.m. and 6 a.m. Functions of the office are limited to no showroom and retail space. Customers will not be directed to come to the office. Site is used just for minor office support. Structure remains residential in character and appearance. Again, they have a field office separately located in Gibsonton. Our contention is that the site is not suited for residential anymore. The ITE generated is very low for the use, 18 daily trips, 2 in the AM peak, 2 in the PM peak. At this location nearby, the county counts almost 20,000 vehicles per day. Also known in the staff report is that the Osprey Observer was approved in February 2019 under a PD for the same type of issue, which is located approximately 500 feet southwest of the subject parcel. And we have agreed actually to more restrictions, and that's located, you can see, very close by, which was previously approved. Development Services notes it fits the pattern of expanding uses on Lithia Pinecrest. They find it compatible with the surrounding area because of its location, the subject application, fronting Lithia Pinecrest. Applicant has agreed to maintain a residential appearance on the site consistent with surrounding residential uses and further agree to site and operational restrictions. Planning Commission says the proposed use will be within an existing single-family home. It will be compatible. It's also found along Orange Walk Drive and providing a 6-foot-tall solid opaque fence. And it is within the Garden Estates character district of the Brandon Community Plan. The proposed plan development adheres to the Brandon Community Plan by remaining a residential style structure. There's a couple policies, I won't read them through, but generally what we've done is it's allowed to recognize this as a transition element, and we've used the different criteria so that it is compatible, and the staffs agree with that. So in summary, the evaluating departments recommend support, no longer appropriate for residential use at home, provides a good buffer, character. Use is restricted, extremely low trips. It's a small, quiet family business, and abutting on the short buffer has indicated opposition. We were not able to get written indication from the neighbor in the north, but the owner of the company has spoken with them, and she'll put that on the record of her conversation with them. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
One quick question. With respect to the scenario that you would ever knock down that structure and build a new residential structure and conform to the requirements of the conditions?
Say the first part again?
Yeah, with respect to the scenario where you would ever knock down that structure, build a new structure, and have to comply with the residential restrictions that are in the conditions?
Are you asking if we agree with that, or?
No, I'm just setting the scenario for you to ask you the question. With respect to that scenario, is it your contention that you just want a 4 to 12 roof pitch or that you would want a 4 to 12 roof pitch or greater?
I think the best answer, if I'm answering your question, is that a residential looking structure is required at the site, whether it's these folks or not.
I don't think you're following my question.
I'm not.
The condition has that new structure would have a roof pitch of 4 to 12.
The point is it provides no flexibility. It says you shall do a 4 to 12. So if you want something, a greater pitch, that's, I think, his point is,
Oh.
do you want to limit yourself to that exact pitch, or you want to give some flexibility? That's the question.
It is the question. And
Is that a typical, I don't know, is that a typical, I'm a zoning guy, is that a typical residential slope? I don't build houses.
residential
Oh,
structures
actually,
have all.
we have a roofing expert here. Well, let's have her answer it.
Oh, okay. Maybe you want to go for the roofing people.
Saved by a true expert.
Hi, everybody. I'm Bridget Wilson.
Good evening.
Good evening. Do you guys need my address?
Yes.
As pertains to this or my home address?
Either one, actually.
Okay, 1312 Orange Walk Drive.
Oh.
As far as whatever roof pitch the county deems fit, 412 is perfectly acceptable to us. We
I
don't,
think the issue here is simply that once you, if the zoning were to be approved with these conditions, you're set with a 4 to 12 roof pitch if you ever knock down the structure. I'm just curious if you would want more flexibility than that for higher roof pitches, but if 4 to 12 is all you care about, that's fine with me.
we want to keep it as residential looking as possible. We want it to blend as much as we possibly can with the surrounding area. We don't want to stand out or make it look commercial in any.
Well, that's fine, but so 4 to 12?
412 is fine with us.
Okay, great. Anything else, Mr. Pressman?
Ms. Scrolla, I have 3 short videos of traffic. I put them in the record. Considering it doesn't look like there's opposition here, I'll leave that. And that's in the record, so if we need to use them, we'll use them in the future. If that's acceptable, rather than playing them and taking it
is.
one's time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and
If I
development.
can have both of you come sign in for me, please.
Yes, please. And then development services.
Good evening, Steve Beachy, Development Services. The applicant is requesting to rezone an approximately 0.38 acre parcel from agricultural single-family conventional to planned development PD to allow administrative office for a roofing company. The subject property has a Res 4 comp plan designation. The proposed development standards generally reflect the existing conditions of the site in terms of the front and side yard setbacks and buffers. As noted by the applicant, this PD is fairly well conditioned. There are a number of conditions that have been placed on this applicant in keeping with the character of the neighborhood and to make sure that it doesn't expand to a different type of use. And as also noted, there is a existing pattern of development in immediate proximity is all residential, but along Lithia Pinecrest, there is a pattern of expanding uses into institutional and office uses. Based on these considerations, staff finds a request approval subject to the conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Beachy. And the Planning Commission.
Thank you. Melissa Leinhardt, Planning Commission staff. The subject property is located in the residential 4 future land use category. It is in the urban service area and also within the limits of the Brandon Community Plan. The applicant has requested approval of a planned development with business professional office uses. The request is an allowable use within the residential 4 future land use category and is compatible with the surrounding development pattern. The proposed use will be within an existing single-family home, which would provide for a compatible development that's also found along Orange Walk Drive. The applicant will also provide a 6-foot-tall solid opaque fence where the office abuts the residential to mitigate any impacts. Within the residential 4 future land use category, non-residential uses may be considered within this category based on the meeting locational criteria as outlined in the future land use element. In this case, the site does meet commercial locational criteria as it is located at the intersection of Orange Walk Drive, which is a major local street, and Lithia Pinecrest, which is an arterial roadway. The proposed rezoning is within the Garden Estates Character District of the Brandon Community Plan. which describes this area as being primarily residential. The proposed planned development is adhering to the Brandon Community Plan by remaining in a residential style building. Overall, the proposed planned development is consistent with the comprehensive plan and compatible with the surrounding development pattern. Based upon those considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed planned development consistent with the future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County, subject to the conditions proposed by the Development Services Department. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody here tonight in support of this request? Anybody in support? Okay, seeing none, is there any opposition to this request? Anybody in opposition? No? All right, Mr. Pressman?
With liberty, Bridget's going to read a very short email to the record from the neighbor, which just came in today.
Oh, great.
Yeah, Mr. Fishman is the neighbor directly north.
Please state your name for the record.
I'm so sorry. Bridget Wilson, Orange Walk Drive, 1312. Robert Fishman writes, to whom it may concern, I have no opposition for Cardinal Roofing moving into 1312 Orange Walk Drive. I am the direct neighbor at 1910 Lithia Pinecrest Road. Bridget came and spoke to me and told me the future plans for the property. I am looking forward to the new fencing. Regards, Robert Fishman.
Great, thank you. Mr. Pressman, anything else? All right, with that, we'll close PD 20-0090.
The next item is in item D2, rezoning application PD 20-0118. The applicant is Tyler J. Hudson with Gardner Brewer Martinez Montford. The request is to rezone from PD and commercial general to planned development. Tanya Chappella will provide staff recommendation after presentation by the applicant.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Scarola. Tyler Hudson, 400 North Ashley Drive, here on behalf of the applicant. Just put something on the elbow real quick. Just wanted. Sorry. Try that again. Good evening. Before I jump in, just want to briefly introduce the project team who is here this evening. David Bell with Landmark is our project engineer. Michael Yates with Palm Traffic is our traffic engineer. Both are available to answer any questions. And thanks to the magic of the internet, the developer is available virtually, Safeguard Self-Storage. Stan Bonilla, if you have any questions in particular to them. I want to thank staff for all their hard work in getting this application to the point here this evening. Due to COVID, there have been a few delays, and I don't want to preempt the staff report. I would note that it does recommend approval. We're very grateful for the cleanliness of the staff report, and would like to note that there are no waivers or variances being requested, and we have no opposition of record. I don't want to read the staff report to you, but there are a couple of things I would like to note at the outset. As you can see, there's a pretty unusually shaped parcel, and so that's really one of the motivating reasons why we are pursuing a PD as opposed to staying within the confines of the Euclidean zoning district, because due to the fact that the actual development's going to center on the top sort of triangular, not quite a triangle, but this portion, and this is not going to have any buildings on it to the south. So we really need the flexibility that the PD provides. The development intent, as you can see, is a 3-story climate-controlled self-storage facility, about 54,000 square feet. Consistent with what the Mango-Sefner community plan requires, which this property was within the ambit of that neighborhood plan. We are focusing the commercial development on MLK, which is consistent with. If you go to the east to the west, you'll see that that's consistent with the development pattern here. Obviously, traffic and transportation is a concern throughout the county, and I would like to note that according to Michael Yates's traffic report, which the county approved, this would generate about 82 daily trips. And just for reference, if you had a 54,000, a similarly shaped building that had generic retail use, which would be permitted by right in CG, that would generate a little bit over 2,000 trips. So it's a really material decrease, really lowers the ceiling, I think, significantly in terms of the traffic, which I think will benefit certainly the neighborhood. So with that, I'm going to sort of turn things over to Sonia. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them now. If not, we'll clean up in rebuttal.
Don't have any, but thank you.
Thank you.
Sir?
Okay, and development services.
Good evening, Tanya Chappella, Development Services. The applicant is seeking to rezone a 4.91 acres of property from commercial general and planned development 810331 to increase to allow for a 54,228 square feet mini warehouse facility. The proposed PD area is currently developed with a contractor's office and accessory open storage, and is in the future land use Res 4. This project is located on the southwest intersection of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard and South Kingsway Road in Sefner. The proposed mini warehouse is a permitted use in the commercial general zoning district and is not creating further incompatibilities with the surrounding area. No increase in the maximum 0.25 FAR allowed in the CG zoning district and the rest for future land use. The proposed building area will not intrude into the required setbacks, buffering, and does not entail a reduction of the required screening. Transportation Review Section staff has no objection to the proposed rezoning subject to conditions. I have not received any opposition from other agencies. There is a design exception to Kingsway Road to determine the specific improvements that will be required by the county engineer. So the county engineer will receive the application, so there is no issues at this point. So I have to say that the staff supports this case based on those considerations and the fact that the surrounding properties are consistent with this application. And this is the end of my report. I'm glad to answer your questions.
But thank you for that. And the Planning Commission.
Thank you, Melissa Leinhardt, Planning Commission staff. The subject property is located in the Residential 4 Future Land Use category. It is in the urban service area, and it is also within the limits of the Sefner Mango Community Plan. By limiting the self-storage facility to the northern portion of the parcel, which is the currently zoned CG portion, and leaving the southern portion of the parcel adjacent to residential development undeveloped, the proposal demonstrates sensitivity and compatibility to the existing development. The proposal meets the buffer requirements of the Land Development Code and meets the intents of policies 16.1 and 16.2 of the future land use element that require appropriate buffers between adjacent land uses and deal with compatibility. The proposal also meets the intent of policy 16.5 of the future land use element that limits non-residential development adjacent to residential to collector and arterial roads. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard is an arterial roadway, and South Kingsway is a collector, and the self-storage facility will front both of those roadways. The proposal is subject to commercial locational criteria, and staff has determined that the site does meet this criteria. The proposal will provide a single access from South Kingsway Road and therefore meets the intent of Objective 23 of the future land use element, which discourages linear strip development and multiple access points. The request is consistent with the adopted Sefner Mango Community Plan and the Livable Communities element of the comprehensive plan. Goals 2 and 3 discourage commercial development from encroaching on residential areas and require them to be limited to the Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard corridor within the urban service area. The proposed commercial use is limited to the corner of the parcel that fronts South Kingsway and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, which is consistent with this policy direction. The southern portion of the parcel will remain undeveloped and no encroachment into the existing adjacent residential areas. And based upon those considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed plan development consistent with the future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County, subject to the conditions proposed by Development Services. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Anybody here tonight in support of the request? Anybody in support? Okay, seeing none, is there any opposition to this request? Anything else from the applicant? Okay, with that, we'll close rezoning PD 20-0118.
The next item is agenda item D3. It's rezoning application PD 20-0170. The applicant is Potomac Land Company. The request is rezone from agricultural single-family conventional 1 to planned development. Steve Beachy with county staff will provide staff recommendation after presentation by the applicant.
Good evening.
Good evening. Sean Cashin, Gulf Coast Consulting, 13825 Icahn Boulevard, Clearwater, Florida. We do have a PowerPoint presentation. There it is. Okay. All right. This request is for a PD rezoning for a 4.9 acre tract that's located at 1806 South St. Cloud Avenue, Valrico, Florida. The site is bounded by South St. Cloud Avenue to the east, existing residential area, Windcrest Commons located to the south. Buckhorn Elementary School is located to the west, and a existing large estate lot is located there to the north. I'm sorry, it's a church. I'm sorry. Church is located to the north. I'm sorry. Future land use. Our site is a Res 4 land use. There is Res 4 that actually surrounds the site to the north, to the east, and to the south. The blue area that's located to the west is public, quasi-public. That is Buckhorn Elementary School. The zoning map, site is located there in the red. Site is zoned ASC 1. You have ASC 1 that's located to the north as well. There is a PD 030102, which is the Windcrest Commons development to the south. You have the RSC 6 zoning, which is located on the east side of South St. Cloud as well. Utilities map, this is showing existing utilities. This area, or the site, is within the urban service area. There's the general site plan. We are proposing 15 7,000 square foot lots, 60-foot minimum width. We have the main access out to South St. Cloud Avenue. We have a interconnected access to Joshua Pine Place, which is a platted right-of-way that extends north from the Windcrest Commons project. That roadway is actually not built. That is just an open green space area right now. Off to the west, we have a future roadway stub out that's at the north end of that cul-de-sac. The 15 lots that are proposing equates to a 3.06 unit per acre density, which does meet the recommended 75% Res 4 density for developments within the urban service area. We are also proposing along the north property boundary with the church a 10-foot landscape buffer. It'll be a vertical landscape buffer with a 6-foot high PVC fence with 3-inch caliper trees 10 feet high every 40 feet. There is also a note that's referencing a 6-foot fence to the south where it is needed. There is a majority of the south property boundary that abuts Windcrest Commons. There are existing fences, but where there is a gap, fencing will be proposed. There's the typical lot layout as shown. 7,000 square foot lots with a 60-foot width. The setbacks will be 20 feet. There'll be a reduction to 10 feet if there's a side-facing garage, or 15 feet for a porch. The rear setback is 20 feet. The side is the standard 5 feet. All right, this exhibit details the proposed sidewalk connectivity. We are proposing to construct sidewalk along the frontage, the east frontage with South St. Cloud Avenue. We are also proposing to extend approximately 100 feet south to connect into the sidewalk that terminates at the Windcrest Commons property boundary. And we are also going to extend approximately 100 feet to the north as well to connect into the residential driveway that's to the northeast of the property. The sidewalk, as shown in blue through the site, will extend off to the west, where it will terminate and abut at the property boundary, the western property boundary, coincident with the Buckhorn Elementary School. Just the blue sidewalk that is shown within the Buckhorn Elementary School, that is what we anticipate the school will construct to have to finish off our complete the sidewalk interconnectivity. But what we are proposing is internal to the site and within the right-of-way of South St. Cloud Avenue. There is the concept plan, colored version, which shows the main access to South St. Cloud, the interconnected access to Joshua Pine Place. It shows the 13 lots that we are proposing with that plan. The retention area is going to be at the far west. We are providing the 10-foot landscape buffer to the north and the 6-foot fencing along the south where we abut that existing residential.
You may be getting there, but what's adjacent to lot 11 and then adjacent to that?
What is adjacent to lot 11?
Yeah.
That is a smaller retention area.
Okay.
The main retention area is to the west, and that was not suitable for a lot, so it's a small retention area.
Now, what's adjacent to the small retention area to the west?
That is a lift station tract.
Okay.
That'll be a private lift station. This development is an infill development that will adhere to the surrounding development pattern of 1 to 5 units per acre. And the future best use of this property is some type of single-family development. This PD design allows for an efficient lot layout that will conform to all Hillsborough County Land Development Code regulations. And that concludes my portion of the presentation, and Bill Sullivan will be up next to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. William Sullivan at 1350 Orange Avenue, Suite 201, Winter Park, Florida, 32789. The first slide is the community outreach. We spoke to, as you could see, we've spoke to all, tried to get to most adjacent owners. We had 3 adjacent owners we did not speak to that were adjacent directly and not across St. Cloud and the others community. And we did get the petition signed by the gentleman to the north of us and to the south of us at the entrance. So that's one. Screening exhibit, I wanted to show you a screening exhibit, the existence privacy screen. There's a existing fence along the boundary. Behind us, from the view, it would look like, well, you've got lots backing up to a road. They're not really. They're lots backing up to a road that have a 50-foot wide retention pond in Windcrest Commons that then backs up to the road. And there are several of those. 6 out of the 13 homes have personal privacy fences on their side of the retention pond, the 50-foot wide drainage easement and retention pond, just kind of show you. Then there's...
So that brings the question, so the fences are on their side of the retention pond, but there's some gaps that you're going to fill in. How does that?
We'll be filling in the entire street with a fence along our property. We have a 1 foot along the street. We're going to have a 1 foot fence tract, which will have a fence. So there'll be not only their fence, but there'll be an additional fence on our side.
Oh, was I wrong? I thought there was testimony that on the south boundary you would infill fence.
Well, he was wrong. We're not infilling the fence. We're going to build a fence along the southern boundary. I apologize for that.
Yeah.
I'm glad you asked for that to get the clarification.
Yeah.
There's the drainage easements and the 50-foot wide, so you can see it on their plat. Then there's the look of what their retention pond looks like in the back of those lots. Then there's the Windcrest Common plat, which shows the Joshua Pine Place. Now, I want to address Joshua Pine Place for 1 second because that's the point that you're going to hear from the residents as a contention. The developer that built Windcrest Commons was required in the PD to build the Joshua Pine Place Road. He platted it, so I assumed he knew he had to build the road, but somehow the county didn't require him at the time to build the road. Those residents are now using it as a park. And so I'm very sympathetic with the residents and letting you decide what you want to do with that point of connectivity. We don't have, we want to do whatever the county tells us to do. So that's that. And there's a future access point.
Let me ask, because I suspect I know what's coming. There is an advantage to having a connection there. As a minimum, it could be an emergency access.
Agreed. We would be glad to make it an emergency access.
All right. We'll hear from them.
Okay, and we're going to reserve whatever time left for the end. Thank you.
Thank you.
So
Okay.
please come sign in with me.
Mr. Sullivan, can you come sign in?
Oh, yeah.
And Development Services.
Good evening, Steve Beachy, Development Services. The applicant is requesting to rezone approximately 4.9 acres from agricultural single-family conventional to planned development to allow residential development of up to 15 homes on the site with access off of St. Cloud Avenue and immediately east of Buckhorn Elementary. The applicant is proposing lots with minimum 7,000 square feet and minimum 60-foot wide lots. The project is notable for a couple of reasons in that it's providing a minimum 5-foot wide sidewalk connection to Buckhorn Elementary, which we don't see very often in projects connecting to elementary schools. Project is also notable in that it has that cross-access connection that seems to be raising some concerns from area residents. In terms of the applicant has also requested a design exception related to improvements on the South St. Cloud Avenue. If the zoning is approved in lieu of extending the sidewalks along the western side of the St. Cloud Avenue, the developer will be relieved of the requirement to bring South St. Cloud Avenue fully up to Hillsborough County Transportation Technical Manual standards. In terms of compatibility, the adjacent properties to the east and to the south are single-family residential and a school and a church to the north and to the west. Certainly, based on the pattern of existing development, it's not anticipated that this project will introduce any new incompatibilities in the immediate area. Staff finds the proposed general development plan approvable. I'm available for any questions.
Mr. Beachy, do we have anybody from Transportation Review Section available?
I believe we do. Mr. Ratliff should be here.
Yes,
I saw him earlier.
Yes, I'm online.
Too.
Can you hear me?
Are you with us?
Yes, hello.
Hello. James, so with respect to this interconnection to the south, if it were an emergency access only, is it from a county standard standpoint?
The Land Development Code, specifically Section 60201A16, does require existing stub outs to be continued. There are other various policies that are supportive of continuation of that as a gridded street system and not emergency access. Emergency access is certainly better than nothing, but it doesn't really get to what the code and the comprehensive plan are trying to seek in terms of connectivity.
Thanks for that, but it wasn't my question. My question was simply, if it were to be used as an emergency access, is there anything technically that would prevent that from occurring?
Yes, that being public right-of-way, there is no way to put private structures within, there would be a special approval process that would need to be done or that would need to be vetted in terms of putting private structures within a public right-of-way.
And if it was a 1-foot strip of private land, an emergency access gate. Would that be that provision?
I mean, it would probably need to be more than 1 foot to accommodate the strip, but certainly if it were if it were a gated emergency, there would also need to be easements in place to address potentially if you're going to have pedestrian connectivity and things like that that are going to be maintained across that kind of spike strip, if you will.
All right, thank you, James. Planning Commission.
Thank you. Melissa Leinhardt, Planning Commission staff. The subject property is located in the Residential 4 Future Land Use category. It is in the urban service area, and it is not within the limits of a community plan. The proposal meets the intent of Objective 1 and Policies 1.2 and 1.3 of the Future Land Use element, which direct growth to be in the urban service area, and for residential developments in the urban service area to meet minimum density of 4 dwelling units per gross acre. The proposal is for 15 single-family dwelling units. Based on the residential 4 category, up to 19 units could be built on the 4.89 acres. However, the lot sizes would be considerably smaller than those in the surrounding subdivisions, and the current proposal is appropriate at 75% of the maximum density allowed as specified in Future Land Use Policy 1.2. The neighborhoods to the south of the subject property consist of single-family dwellings on 11,000 square foot lots, and the residential development to the east of the subject property consists of single-family dwellings on 8,000 square foot lots. The proposal to develop single-family dwellings on 7,000 square foot lots is compatible with the existing residential density of the area and serves as an appropriate example of infill development. The site plan for the planned development demonstrates adequate connectivity to adjacent properties and neighborhoods. There is a vehicular and pedestrian access along the northeast portion of the property in the public right-of-way and a platted but unimproved access in the right-of-way to the south of the property connecting Joshua Pine Place to Windcrest Oaks Court. There is also a pedestrian and vehicular access on the eastern side of the property on South St. Cloud Street. These connections meet several goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan, namely the connectivity policies that are listed in the community design component in the future land use element. A diversity of housing types and lot sizes is emphasized by the community design component as well. The proposal meets Goal 8, Objective 8 of the design component by preserving the suburban character of the surrounding area. Based upon those considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed plan development consistent with the Future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County, subject to the conditions proposed by Development Services. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. All right, is anybody here tonight in support of this request? Anybody in support? Okay, I see none. Is there anybody here tonight in opposition to this request? If you are, okay, I see hands in one section. Raise your hands one more time. Okay, did you happen to appoint a primary speaker? Into 3? Okay, so 5 minutes apiece is going to do it. Now, by the way, we can allow the others to come forward, state that they agree or name an address on the record so they can become parties of record. But I'm going to divide the time up into 3 speakers. Come on up. 5 minutes per speaker. Good evening.
Keith Mortensen, 2831 Windcrest Oaks Court, Bowerico, Florida 33594. I want to thank you for this opportunity to meet with you regarding the zoning. I'm here to express my concerns over the plan to add the road Joshua Pine to our community. I believe that it's a negative impact that far outweighs any possible positive impacts. The neighborhood already has precious little green space. This road will eliminate almost all of it. There is a great value. There is great value to the neighborhood, especially for the children, having this green space available for their use. There will be negative impact to our neighborhood and the proposed new neighborhood due to the increased traffic into, out of, and between the neighborhoods. The increased traffic presents a risk to the pedestrians, especially the children of the 2 neighborhoods. Windcrest Oaks Court is a narrow road already and not suitable for 2-way traffic much of the day with cars parked on the side of the road. The risk for my family, especially for 3 young children ages 7, 5, and 1, is probably the most significant given that the new road faces directly into my front yard. I have not heard or seen anything which mitigates these risks or hazards. The distance between St. Cloud and Joshua Pine is barely 200 feet. Adding the road to facilitate automobile traffic between the two neighborhoods does not seem to be a good use of this space and is serving a far greater purpose to the neighborhood. In fact, if the new neighborhood adds the existing green space to its neighborhood, it will enhance both neighborhoods and provide an avenue for foot traffic between the two neighborhoods. Those of us currently living in Windcrest Commons neighborhood feel that this new road will have a negative impact on our property values. We do not have any way to measure this impact, but we believe that it will be sizable. I respectfully request that the committee consider this matter and take into considerations that you'll hear from the residents tonight. Thank you.
Okay, bear with me one second. Brian, which condition is the extension?
Scary. It is condition number, looking at this earlier, hold on. Oh, it's here someplace. Oh, it's 13.
13?
I do have a picture
Hold on, sir.
of
Hold on,
that
sir.
green space.
Hold on. So Brian, it's pretty clear that the developer would have the responsibility to extend it all the way through and across the green space, is that right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, next speaker, please. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Michael Whitehead at 2816 Windcrest Oaks Court, Valrico, Florida, 33594. Live in a quarter-acre lot on the north side of Windcrest Commons that will abut the proposed property to on the north side and the subject property south side. I'm opposed to the development on a few grounds. I'm in the need of relocating to the Atlanta area, and on August 7th, I listed my home for sale. On August 10th, I had a asking price offer, and on August 12th, received notice that this subject would be entertained further for development, and had to disclose that to my buyer, and they immediately rescinded the offer. So to Mr. Mortenson's point, it certainly affects sellability of the homes and property values. In addition, there are 40-plus homes under construction within a third mile of the proposed development in Windcrest Commons. I don't know how St. Cloud is going to handle that traffic. 4.9 acres with 13 homes, to me, is an example of not very responsible development, particularly considering that the strip of property from north to south is 165 feet wide at its widest. It is a gopher tortoise habitat, which I know there are means to take care of that, but it is indeed a gopher tortoise habitat, and those are the points that I would like to make.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Appreciate the testimony. Next speaker. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Stuart Nicholas, 2828 Windcrest Oaks Court. So I live in the property immediately adjacent to the proposed road. So while I oppose the development for a number of aspects related to property value, my main concern is with the Joshua Road paving. The green space is very, very important to our community. My own children and dozens of other children play in this space every single day. It's the only green space that's available in our community. It's important to us, and my concern is really one of safety for our children. My concern is that if we choose to pave Joshua Place or provide any kind of access point there, that will push our children into playing in the street, which creates a whole other safety concern. Really, that's the only place that they have to safely play within our community right now. And that's ultimately my concern, is to keep our children safe, make that space available to the people within our community, and just really keep them safe.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate the testimony.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else that needs to speak? There's still some time. Good evening.
Good evening. Leslie Monahan, 2820 Windcrest Oaks Court, Valrico 33594. And I'm here to restate this same opposition solely to the paving of Joshua Pine Place. As it is, as you've been told, one of the only green spaces for our children to play in. And I do not see the value in paving the road. And I would like you to very, very strongly consider keeping it green space for our children, for not only their safety, for them to be outside playing. We don't want our children to have to play in the street, as you know, that is really the only space they have. The developer has been very good to give us many concessions, because none of us honestly wanted the development in the beginning, because I abut the north side of the property, so they'll abut me and take down the 4.9 acres of trees that I've had the pleasure of looking at every morning and every evening. They're all going to be taken down. So we'll no longer have that pleasure, but we would at least let our children have the pleasure of having some green space to play in.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Anybody else? And even if you just need to get on the record with your name, feel free to come up. If not, I'm going to close it. All right, we're closing opposition testimony. And anything from staff?
Nothing further.
Okay, and the applicant? Okay, thank you for letting me know. You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you.
Elizabeth Rodriguez, 18156 Sandy Point Drive, Tampa 33647. With regard to Joshua Pine Place, we were required to provide connectivity, and we are amenable to whatever decisions you make as far as, access, no access, emergency access. With regard to just traffic in general on South St. Cloud, as you know, we are now just doing access management traffic studies, not concurrency traffic studies. We pay mobility fees for, capacity. And then relative to access management, this is such a small development that it's under the 50 PM peak hour threshold that would even require to do that, because it's just, obviously glancing at it, turn lanes wouldn't be required. So we just wrote kind of a statement that we were sub-threshold. We did do the design exception, I think that was alluded to by staff, because South St. Cloud is a substandard road. We aren't bringing it fully up to standard, but we're improving some swales along our frontage. We are extending sidewalk beyond that which is required along our frontage. We're extending it to the north, to the south. And then this developer, volunteered and actually thought up the idea of like, hey, let's connect through to Buckhorn Elementary School. It was his idea, and he offered to do it in addition to everything else, for such a small development. And it's such a good idea from like just in transportation planning and urban planning perspective to create that connection. That's going to allow the kids from both developments to walk, which provides, social and health benefits, to be able to walk to school. Most of the schools, have queuing issues, in the morning, and anybody that you can take out of cars and make walk, that helps with them. It helps with, reducing the AM peak hour traffic for everybody. So it's just a win-win-win. Yeah, that's.
So what is the benefit of connecting Joshua Place through when the distance to the connection from South St. Cloud is so short?
I think it's just kind of meeting the code. I mean, connectivity is a good thing in general, so that people are not making circuitous trips, so that if, my child wants to play with your child, instead of me driving out to the main road and putting additional vehicle miles of travel on South St. Cloud and then driving into the other development, we can keep that traffic off of South St. Cloud. But so for subdivisions across the county, it's good to kind of connect the backs of them so that you don't put that traffic on the road. Now, in this case, you've got, that's the thing, it's like one size does not fit all, right? So in this case, you've got two really small developments, and the connection is only like a lot back from South St. Cloud. And, how often is it going to be used? And then in terms of, emergency access, how often is it going to be used? So connectivity in general is a good thing, is part of our job to, not just try to, shove everything into a certain box. We have to look at things on a case-by-case basis. Is this particular connection going to be helpful?
So on the other hand, was this right-of-way, it's a right-of-way stub out on a plat, right?
Yeah, on theirs. And I'm surprised that it wasn't, that they didn't have to, pave it up to our.
Well, the question is, it was a right-of-way stub out.
Yeah.
Was it a 50-foot right-of-way stub out as if designed for a roadway?
Correct. Yeah.
Well, hold on. Only one
Yeah,
person
I
at a time.
assume so. So, yeah.
Okay. Did you happen to see the zoning condition on the Joshua Place side of this that created Joshua Place?
I did not. And if you want to ask them next, I think.
Okay, well, let's do that then.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Scarola, Steve Beachy, Development Services.
So yes, we did look at the,
Yes.
pardon?
This is Steve Beachy, Development Services. I want to share my
Mr.
screen.
Beachy, can you repeat that?
This is Steve Beachy, Development Services. I wanted to share my screen with you to show you the condition that created that stub out, if you would like to see it.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
So the condition, can you see the condition?
Let's sort of review it.
It says the developer shall be required to provide cross-access along the northern project boundary via the provision of a street stub out along the northern project boundary. And then it goes on to say the developer shall have the option to provide cross-access to the adjacent properties to the south if mutually acceptable to the developer and affected property owners.
So is it fair enough to say that it's the first sentence that we're talking about, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Stub out along the northern property boundary. So it was planned for in the Joshua Place plat and zoning. Okay, thank you, Mr. Beachy. Mr. Sullivan.
It was planned for the developer prior to ours, didn't do it. We're basically we're cleaning up a mess of someone else. The prior developer didn't do what he was required to do. Somehow it got slipped through the cracks. We've had this you see this in, over time in a lot of different places. So we'll do whatever the county wants. One possible solution might be to let us build pedestrian access through them so that their kids don't have to go all the way out to out to St. Cloud Avenue, and then provide pedestrian access. And so that's one solution. The other might be is instead of having an emergency quote access, is that we're required to stabilize a path through there that, not to be, and we, can be a pedestrian thing that they could, something could be put up or whatever. Whatever you guys want to do. I don't think the problem with the emergency entrances is then you have the knock box and the whole thing. This doesn't have to be that
By the way,
complicated.
keep in mind, it's not you guys. I'm here as an independent hearing officer, And it's the county commission
county commission.
ultimately, and you're trying to satisfy the comprehensive plan, and you've got some testimony on the record that says
Yeah.
that it wants to have these interconnections.
I'll be
Now
glad, we'll be glad to interconnect if this is what the county requests. We proposed interconnection. We're not deviating from that.
Mr. Squirrel, before he finishes rebuttal, Mr. Ratliff wants to respond to something.
So, Mr. Sullivan, let's hear that, and then I'll let you respond to it.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Thanks. Actually, this was just with regard to something that one of the citizens.
I'm sorry, Mr. Latliff. Hold on one second. Mr. Ratliff, you're a little low there. Could you maybe move the mic in or speak a little louder?
Yes, is this better?
Yes, that's good. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Essentially, I just wanted to, there was something that was stated by one of the citizens regarding the roads being too narrow and inadequate to support the connectivity. And I did want to mention that the rights of way are 50 feet. The project to the south does have standard roadways that are compliant with the Transportation Technical Manual, and the new roadway connection and internal project roadways of the subject project here tonight would have to construct fully compliant roadways in accordance with the TTM. So it is wide enough to be done safely and in accordance with the standard, and I just wanted to make sure that was on the record.
Thank you, James. Mr. Sullivan.
Sorry about that. We also want to stress that it's not just the interconnectivity, the pedestrian interconnectivity to the school is not just serving our community and the community across the, to the south of us, Windcrest. It's serving the entire area of that whole area. So there's going to be lots of kids being able to, walk through and go to school, which is going to be a wonderful thing for all of us.
What is your point there that it's more important to have the pedestrian connection than the entire street connection?
That would be more important to have the pedestrian connection. I want to keep the kids off of main streets.
All right, anything else?
That's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And with that, we'll close PD 20-0170.
The next item then is agenda item D4. It's rezoning application PD 20-0173. The applicant's Potomac Land Company. The request is rezoned from AS1 to Plan Development. Tanya Chapello with county staff will provide staff recommendation after presentation by the applicant.
Good evening.
Good evening again. Sean Cashin, 13825 ICOP Boulevard, Clearwater, Florida. This also has a PowerPoint presentation. There is a project location. This request for a PD rezoning is for this 20.6 acre tract of land located at 724 North St. Cloud Avenue. The site is bounded by North St. Cloud Avenue to the east, existing residential areas to the south, which is zoned RSC2 with the future land use of R4, vacant land to the west, and CXS Railroad off to the west. There's the future land use map. Res 4 for this site, as well as to the east, to the west, and to the south. The railroad again is to the north. Zoning map. Our site is zoned AS1 as well as to the north, east, and west. The RSC2 zoning is for the residential area to the south. This area is within the urban service area. Utilities map. General site plan. The general site plan proposes 10,000 square foot lots along the south property boundary where we abut the existing residential area. To the southwest is proposed a large drainage retention area. Minimum 6,000 square foot lots are proposed on the remainder of the development with 50-foot wide minimum lots. 75 lots are proposed, which equates to a 3.63 unit per acre density, again satisfying the 75% density for Res 4 future land use developments within the urban service area. We are proposing along the southern property boundary a 10-foot vertical landscape buffer with a 6-foot high PVC fence with 3-inch caliper, 10-foot high trees every 40 feet. And that will be along the south property boundary. There is a fence that is proposed along with the trees along the western property boundary as well. You can't really see it on this general site plan, but one-story homes are proposed for the eastern 475 feet along the south property boundary. Oh, okay. I apologize. That on the current general site plan, that has been taken off. So the one-story home requirement for that eastern 475 feet is no longer part of the general site plan. Typical lot layout, again, we have the 10,000 square foot lots that are along the southern property boundary, 6,000 square foot for the interior and the remainder of the property. With the front setbacks of 20 feet, there are provisions for 10 and 15. Rear setback is 20 feet with the exception of the lots along the southern property boundary. They will be 30 feet. As well as the lots abutting South St. Cloud and the CSX Railroad to the north. Okay. All right, that is the off-site sidewalk exhibit. We are proposing to extend the sidewalk within the North St. Cloud Avenue right-of-way, approximately 320 feet to the south that will connect into the existing sidewalk that's near Viola Lane, as shown. Here's the overall colorized concept plan, which shows the main access to North St. Cloud Avenue in the center portion along the eastern boundary. There will be an emergency access just to the north of that. The cul-de-sac terminates along the west, and there will be a provision for a future roadway connection to the north upon any future development. This to the west.
Well, you lost me to the south. There's the connection south. Yeah, we missed the one to the south, and I don't see the one to the west.
Yes, there is a roadway that is stubbed out to the south as well.
Okay, and where's the one to the west?
The one to the west is the cul-de-sac along the far west end. That right-of-way extends to the western property boundary, so it can be connected into if there's any future development off to the west. This project is an infill development that will adhere to the development pattern of 1 to 5 units per acre in this area. And again, the best use of this property is for a single-family development. The PD design allows for an efficient lot layout, which will comply with the Hillsborough County Land Development Code requirements. All right, that concludes my presentation, and Bill Sullivan will come to the podium.
All right.
All right, it's William Sullivan, 13. Do I need to give my address every time?
Please,
Okay,
yes.
thank you. 1350 Orange Avenue, Suite 201, Winter Park, Florida, 32789. We begin our community outreach by going and talking to as many individuals around the property as possible to just first tell them about what's going on. We followed that up with a community meeting on February 11th, 2020, that was held right down the street at the local church there locally. Right here there's a church just south of us on South St. Cloud. And so we met there with all the adjacent owners. And so we got their input and worked with them. Wanted to show you the buffer, and I want I want to set the record a little bit straighter. Sean said it was along the southern property boundary. This buffer is along the southern and western property boundary, not adjacent to right-of-way. So that's where that's going to be. And then, so this is the Valerie, which is, it's a vertical screening. It's not a buffer. We call it screening now. It's the terminology has been changed. So it's vertical screening along the western and southern boundary. Apologize. That's showing you, so we have a 6-foot high opaque fence along the northern boundary along CSX. We have along the eastern boundary, the 6-foot with the trees on the southern and western boundary. And on the eastern boundary, we've got a 10-foot landscape buffer, which is going to be consisting of ornamental trees every 20 foot on center. But due to the overhead power lines, they will be ornamentals that can fit in there and not go and wreak havoc on the power lines. This is the distance from the property to the southern boundary. This is where we had originally said that we were going to, with the residents, we had talked about giving, 1-2 foot, because the property appraiser showed that the distance between the houses, their map and the map that we have now the survey, showed that they were much closer to our property. Their houses were physically much closer. So I had our surveyor go out and measure every single one of them. The only one that is really affected by it is the one there at the southeast corner of our property. He's 31 feet from our property line. We will do a private situation with him as to agreeing to a 1-story there. But, other than that, it's where we are on on the thing. And that's why that was to do that. The other thing I wanted to show you is that, and this map shows it, but to the north of us is not only CSX, but also the property to the north of us is TECO future transmission lines, and across the railroad is also TECO future transmission lines. So this property is well buffered and is, it's kind of at the best use. I'll reserve any time if there's anyone, if you have any questions.
I don't. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and the development services.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
That's all right.
I'll get used to this.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Okay, so the applicant is requesting to rezone approximately 20.66 acres from agricultural single family to planned development to allow 75 single family lots. One emergency only and full access point on and off of North St. Cloud Avenue are proposed. I want to share my screen. So the surrounding area is a residential single-family development, zone AS1, RZ2, and PD. Residential development with similar density exists in the area. You can see it in the south and west. We see residential development with similar density, and 2 mobile home parks exist also in the area to the south of St. Cloud. And on the east and west sides of North St. Cloud Avenue. So the staff finds the proposed development is compatible with the surrounding area. Let me find the other graphic. So conditions are proposed for a maximum of 75 single-family lots with specific lot development standards. The lot development standards are required according to the parcel location. So lots along the southern PD boundary shall provide a minimum of 10,000 square feet and a minimum of 77 feet lot width. The rest to the north, the center of the development, and along the front PD boundary shall comply with a minimum of 6,000 square feet and a 50 feet minimum lot width. The maximum building height will be 35 feet, 2 stories, And if the zoning is approved, a design exception for North St. Cloud Avenue shall be approved. A 10-foot buffer with screening shall be provided along the southwest and north PD boundary. The applicant already explained the specifics on that. The proposed plan development has frontage of North St. Cloud Avenue. The property to the north is occupied by a railroad and does not allow for an opportunity to provide vehicular cross access. Vehicular cross access to the south is not feasible given the existence of single-family homes along the PD boundary. Access to the site is planned to be provided via the following access points. So we have one main access on North St. Cloud Avenue and the southern end of the property frontage. So we also have a gated emergency vehicular and pedestrian access on North St. Cloud Road and the northern end of the proposed frontage. We also have a cross-access stub out to the southern property, and then another one to the west for future connection to Church Street to the west. So again, this is for the future connectivity to Church Street. No agencies have presented opposition to this request, and based on those considerations, staff finds that the request is approvable subject to conditions. And with this, I conclude my presentation.
All right, thank you very much for that. And then the Planning Commission.
Thank you. Melissa Leinhardt, Planning Commission staff. The subject property is located in the residential 4 future land use category. It is in the urban service area, and the subject property is not located within the limits of a community plan. The proposal meets the intent of Objective 1 and Policy 1.2, the future land use element of the comprehensive plan, which require growth to be in the urban service area and meet the minimum density requirements of 4 dwelling units per acre for this future land use category. The applicant is requesting 75 dwellings, and the maximum permitted in the residential 4 future land use category for this acreage is 82 units. At 91% of the maximum density that could be considered for the subject property, the proposal meets the intent of the minimum density policy 1.2. On its southern boundary, the subject property is directly adjacent to larger single-family lots that are approximately 1 acre in size. These lot sizes are characteristic of an older development pattern from the 1960s. There are also remnant agricultural parcels in the near vicinity. However, the area is now in transition as there are newer single-family residential developments on smaller lot sizes, such as Somerset Tract to the southeast, which has 6,000 square foot lots, and Crosby Crossings to the southwest, which also has 6,000 square foot lots. The proposal serves as an appropriate infill development project, and the proposed lot sizes are compatible with the surrounding area, and they meet the intent of Policy 16.8 that requires lot sizes to recognize character within the area. The proposal meets the intent of the policy direction in the future land use element by providing adequate connectivity and buffering techniques to maintain compatibility with the general character of the area. The inclusion of 10,000 square foot lots along the southern boundary of the proposed development provides a sensitive transition between the 1 acre single family lots and the proposed 6,000 square foot lots. The site plan for the planned development demonstrates adequate connectivity to adjacent neighborhoods and properties. The diversity of housing types and lot sizes is emphasized in the community design component of the future land use element, and this proposal is consistent with that policy direction. Based upon those considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed plan development consistent with the future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County, subject to the conditions proposed by Development Services. Thank you.
Okay, anybody here tonight in support of this request? Anybody in support? Yes, ma'am. Yes. Good evening.
Hi, my name is Mary Ann Nikki Aquilano. I own the 2 properties directly east of the property they're talking about. And the property has been vacant for 12 years. So it actually, it looks from the aerial pictures, it looks like a beautiful foresty area, but it's actually a criminal attraction because you can't see in there. It's very dense with trees. We live in a beautiful, quiet neighborhood. There's housing tracts around to the north of us. Everybody's just really quiet. We have speed bumps all along North St. Cloud and Crosby, so that everybody that comes through is coming back by at a very slow pace. And it would be really nice to see that property across the street developed into a beautiful neighborhood where people can raise their families. So I'm just here because I would just really love to see this happen. A lot of people come there and dump their trash. And so we're always having to go clean it up, and it's really kind of a pain in the you-know-what, so.
All right, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you very
ma'am.
much.
Yes, ma'am. Anybody else in support of this request? Anybody in support? I see none. Is there anybody in opposition to this request? Okay, anything from staff?
Nothing further.
All right, and the applicant.
We want to thank you for the time. The staff has done a great job in molding it, in the community itself that actually came out and made some changes that made it a much better project. And I find that doing the community outreach we do, in other words, talking to everyone individually and then also having a community meeting, has really served us well from that standpoint. So we thank you all and look forward to doing this project.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. With that, we're going to close rezoning PD 20-0173.
The next item is agenda item D5, rezoning plan development 20-0287, the applicant Sims East Base LLC. The request is rezoned from AS1, RSC6, RSC9, and when RSC9 with a mobile home overlay to a plan development. Israel Monsanto will provide staff recommendation after presentation by the applicant.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Hearing Master. I'm Michael Horner, 14502 North Dale Mabry Highway, Suite 200, Tampa, 33618. My mask is steaming up my glasses. Tampa, Florida, 33618, representing the owner and the applicant. The owners are here, Mr. and Mrs. Johnson. I don't think they'll be testifying, but they did want to be recognized as attending. Michael Yates from Palm Traffic will be following my comments for his brief transportation review as well. Mrs. Scroll, this is a 7.13 acre tract. It's northwest quadrant of Sims Road and East Bay Road. It is both Res 6 and Res 9. We are exercising a planned flex from the Res 9 over the Res 6, so all of this will be Res 9. It is zoned AS1, RSC 6, and RSC 6 overlay with mobile home. It is in the urban service area, so public water and public sewer will be required. We're seeking a PD tonight for 2 development options. I might ask or add that we are coming to you tonight with unanimous recommendations for approval. Planning Commission finds us consistent with all goals, policies, and objectives, as well as no objections from any review agencies. And I don't believe we have any opposition. We are seeking 2 development options, Mr. Scroll. One is the residential option, the other is a non-residential option. The residential option, which we refer to as option 2, is 64 attached townhomes. Let me just point out while I have this on the overhead, excuse me. Orient you, this is East Bay, runs directly north to Gibsonton Drive to the north. This is Sims Road, which connects 41 to 301. I-75 is just to the east. These are an assemblage, I want to say at least 9 to 10 lots, remnants of lots that we've incorporated into one PD application. Take it this way. So the residential option, Mr. Scroll, is for 64 attached townhomes, single family attached, fee simple ownership. Buildings are limited to 2 stories in height, 35 feet. We are offering a maximum cap of 6 units per building. And that would be along the north as well as the west boundary lines, which abut other residential property. We are providing a 5-foot buffer and a 6-foot opaque fence along the entire north and west side as well. In addition to that, it's a PVC fence, 100% opaque. We're proposing a minimum 35-foot building setback from the entire western and northern boundary as well. We also provided a couple of cross-access locations. We don't know the feasibility of those. We talked with staff. They indicated for similar uses. Right now, we have a mobile home park to our north. We have some scattered single-family lots on the other boundaries. We are proposing that if it works. If not, then we'll await that further development of those lots, and then that connection can be made. Our access, Mr. Scroll, is restricted to 2 driveways total. One on the northern edge of East Bay Road, East Bay Drive, and then the second one further west on Sims Road. As noted, we're seeking the plan flex. This Res 9 was approved, I want to say 4 years ago, by the Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners by unanimous vote. This plan flex occupies about 75%. It's denoted by the area in white. The area in the shade is the area that's currently Res 6. We are flexing on top of that Res 6 for the entirety of the property to be in Res 9. This area has experienced significant development pressures, as I'm sure you're aware, for development due to Sims Road connecting US 301 and US 41, also East Bay Road, East Bay Drive directly connecting to the Gibson Drive I-75 interchange. We have I-75 directly to the east, although it's not an interchange. The Super Walmart Center is up at Gibsonton. There's a charter school at Sims and Fernhill. The lots to the south are all in SMU 6. My guess is that with this intersection, the amount of traffic, that the highest and best use of those lots south of Sims Road will not remain single-family detached. Just to the east side, we have 5,000 square foot lots, single family. We do have some non-residential uses further west. We have BPO, lodging, zoning further north. This traffic has required an engineering assessment and review, and the county is proposing a roundabout. I'll show you that graphic. I'm going to have Mr. Yates address the specifics of that. But just so you know, that roundabout is budgeted, financed, and proposed. My client is giving that right-of-way a strip along East Bay Drive, as well as Sims Corner clip at the intersection itself. The other the other option, Mr. Scroll, is the non-residential option. And that is for the entire tract as well. We are dividing it up into 2 parcels. Parcel A is a 5.83 acre tract that we're asking for BPO uses, essentially. Parcel B is the out parcel corner right at the intersection itself, and that's about 1.3 acres. We're asking for CN restricted, as well as BPO uses. The conditions are obviously part of this report, and we are in agreement with all those conditions of record. The total square footage is capped to 60,500 square feet, 51,500 square feet of office on parcel A, and then either 2 options, 4,000 square foot bank or up to 9,000 square feet of BPO uses on the out parcel. A total 11,500 square feet of this parcel A office space will be restricted to medical. So we cap those peak hour trips on that BPO portion as well. We've agreed to numerous restrictions Mr. Scroll has referenced. These include prohibition of fast food, restaurants, drive-through, convenience stores, either with or without gas pumps. I think we also agreed to liquor stores, bars, lounges, and staff also asked us to prohibit schools because of additional traffic operational concerns. So we agreed to all of those restrictions. We also agreed to a number of design features and design elements that are adopted as part of these conditions. The maximum building height on the entire project is 35 feet or 2 stories. We also agreed to a 50-foot building setback along the entire north and west boundary, including a 20-foot type B buffer.
Wait, Mr. Warner.
Yes, sir.
North and west boundary is 50 feet, but I thought you said 35 before.
That was for the residential option. I'm on the non-residential option.
So you go 50 feet.
That's right.
Okay.
So we increased that. That was staff's requirements. We debated that for some time, but we agreed to that
All
50-foot
right.
setback.
Thank you.
Hours of operation were also discussed, and I'm pleased that we've reached an agreement. Most of those hours, the office are 7 to 7, out parcel 7 to 9, 9 p.m. for an urgent care if that's proposed at the corner, and then 11 p.m. for a sit-down restaurant. Again, no bars or lounges are permitted. This would be like a Chili's or an Applebee's. 11 p.m. closing we thought was most reasonable. Lastly, Mrs. Scurll, we agreed to a 6,000 square foot cap in terms of the building footprint. So we're allowed to go 2 stories. We can go 12,000 square feet in a building. But we cannot expand that building footprint beyond 6,000 square feet. This property meets all locational criteria provisions, obviously being at the intersection. This is the roundabout. I'll just leave it on, and Mr. Yates can discuss that further. Again, my client is donating all of this strip along East Bay Road, as well as this corner clip that is defined in the conditions. We want to make sure that it was specific to that distance and that separation and that square footage, because they have had a number of options over the last year and a half. But we feel this is an appropriate improvement. My client certainly wants to be a good neighbor, a developer that's going to be looking for improvements in the future that will certainly assist their resale value and development options of this property, and to eliminate this terrible intersection which backs up. There's no question this intersection backs up during the peak hours.
And your project doesn't have anything to do with the right-of-way shaded on the other side of
It
Sims?
does not. That is exclusive, and we have not entertained any conditions for that. So we are only agreeing to those 2 dedications to Hillsborough County. We have no objections. Again, we have filed no waivers, no design variations. We have no changes proposed to the conditions of record. We did meet with the concerned citizens of Gibsonton. Gosh, pre-COVID, I want to say it was March. I think it was a good meeting. I don't recall any opposition comments. I spoke to the president a couple months ago, and I believe we're on the same page. So with that, Mr. Scurll, I'm going to ask Mr. Yates to discuss traffic issues briefly, and then we'll close.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening, Michael Yates, Palm Traffic, 400 North Tampa Street, Suite 1500. I'll be brief. I'll talk about the traffic circle and the requirements. To address your comment on the right-of-way, Sims is actually a 2-lane enhanced roadway from a right-of-way preservation standpoint. The existing right-of-way is there. What is shown in blue on the south side is additional right-of-way needed for the traffic circle. They didn't need any on the north side, but we have worked with Public Works to coordinate that right-of-way acquisition and that corner clip on the corner that you've seen. So we worked diligently through this process to coordinate. We've also, the access locations that you've seen on our site plan were laid out to pull away from the intersection to get out of the turn lanes that they're proposing at the intersection. We've shared our site plan with them and gone through a lot of work to coordinate that. There's a traffic study on file if you have any interest. The intersections work at acceptable level of service. The driveways work at acceptable level of service. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
I don't have any, but thank you for that. All right. And development services.
Good evening, Mr. Scurll. Israel Monsanto Development Services. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I will share my screen. Again, Israel Monsanto for the record. The applicant has presented the request very complete. I'm just going to say that staff has evaluated the request and conditions proposed by the applicant and finds that the project with the proposed restrictions, development standards, and scale is compatible with the area. The subject site is located at an intersection of two collector roads and meets comprehensive plan commercial locational criteria. The proposed development options will result in the development of a neighborhood scale project and also a townhome project consistent with the pattern of the area. Although non-residential uses will be introduced at this intersection, a reduced floor area ratio, building design, increased rear setbacks, hours of operation restrictions, opaque screening, and limited height would ensure reduction or elimination of possible impacts. The proposed project meets comprehensive plan goals and objectives and is consistent with the future land use. No objections were received from other reviewing agencies. Therefore, based on those restrictions and all considerations, the staff recommends approval, and I'm available, Mr. Scarroll, if you have any questions.
And then the planning commission.
The subject property is located in the residential 6 and the residential 9 future land use categories. It is in the urban service area, and it is also located within the limits of the Gibsonton Community Plan and the South Shore Area-Wide Systems Plan. The proposed plan development would allow for two development options: to develop a non-residential development with office and retail uses with restrictions, or the second option is for a maximum of 64 townhomes. Both options are consistent with the intent of the future land use categories 6 and 9. With two different future land use categories, the applicant requested a flex of the residential 9 future land use category. The applicant has provided written justification for the flex to increase the density and intensity to residential 9 standards. The residential 9 future land use category allows up to 0.5 floor area ratio for office uses and 0.35 floor area ratio for retail. For option 1, the applicant is developing an office complex with a retail out parcel. The applicant is requesting a maximum of 60,500 square feet of non-residential uses, which is well below what can be considered for that site. Planning Commission staff has reviewed the flex provision in their flex request and recommends that the Board of County Commissioners approve the flex request based on compatibility. In option 2, the applicant is proposing a townhome development with a maximum of 64 dwelling units, which is the maximum that can be considered for the site and is therefore consistent with the residential 9 future land use category. Commercial locational criteria is intended to focus commercial development at nodes of qualifying intersection and is required for proposed non-residential uses. The site is within the qualifying distance of Sims Road, which is a collector, and East Bay Road, which is also a collector, so the site does meet commercial locational criteria. The Gibsonton Community Plan includes a goal with regard to incorporating new single-family and rental units offering a range of housing choices. The applicant is meeting the intent of this goal by providing townhomes as a development option. Additionally, the applicant is providing sidewalks along Sims Road, which is part of the Gibsonton Community Plan's walkability strategy. Based upon those considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed plan development consistent with the future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County, and that is subject to the conditions proposed by the Development Services Department. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. Anybody here tonight in support of this request? Seeing none, is there any opposition to the request? No. Mr. Horner.
Thank you, Mr. Scarola. As Melissa noted in her Planning Commission comments just now, the FAR capability is up to 0.5 as well as 0.35 respectively, and we are at about 0.198. So we are well within that floor area ratio. We did that for a number of reasons. Staff expressed some concerns about massing, and we have residential uses on the other corners. But more importantly, it's not a greater trip generator given those commercial uses in the non-residential option. I'm going to have my client, Jim Johnson, just wants to introduce himself and just make a brief comment, if I may.
Sure.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Hi, Jim Johnson, 19255 Hidden Oaks Drive, Brooksville, Florida. I have no specific comments, sir. Just wanted to come up and offer if you had any questions for me as the owner applicant.
I don't, but thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Anything else, Mr. Horner?
Presentation.
All right, thanks. So with that, we're going to close PD 20-0287.
The next item is agenda item D7, rezoning application PD 20-0338. The applicant is James Zinner. The request is rezone from commercial general and AS1 to a planned development. Israel Mansanto will provide staff recommendation at the presentation by the applicant.
And the applicant, please. This is PD 20-338. Good evening.
I am Jim Zinner. I'm the engineer for this rezoning, and there's...
Sir, can you provide your address for the record?
Please.
Say again?
Your address, please.
1103 North Wheeler Street, Suite D, Plant City, Florida. The site is an existing union hall for local millwrights, and they have a dual zoning in their property, and they want to expand a building for learning, and also in the future they want to put in another complete building for a learning center, and that requires rezoning of the property to be all one zoning rezoned to a planned development. It's 5.17 acres. It's on US Highway 92, and it requires these plant requires more additional room for the new learning center, and requires this rezoning. Thank you. Any questions?
No, thank you for that, though. And development services.
Sir, you need to sign in.
Right over here.
Israel Monsanto Development Services. I will share my screen for a few seconds. The applicant seeks to rezone a parcel currently with two zoning districts. The northern portion of the parcel is zoned commercial general, while the rest is zoned agricultural single family 1. The request is to rezone to a planned development to expand the current use in the commercial general zone portion. The parcel today operates as a technical trade school. The site is located on the south side of East US Highway 92, east of I-4 and west of Falconborough Road in Tampa. The future land use is community mixed use 12. After the expansion is complete, the trade school would consist of 4 buildings, 2 existing and 2 proposed, housing administrative offices and classrooms, in addition to new stormwater ponds and parking areas. Buffer and screening will be as required by the Land Development Code. Total proposed square footage for the project is 36,800 square feet for a floor area ratio of 0.16. Buildings will maintain at least 55 feet from the south PD line against the existing mobile home park, and will include a 20-foot buffer type B screening along the south as required per code. All buildings proposed are single-story structures, and the maximum of number of students will be 79. The site will maintain a single access of Highway US 92, subject to FDOT review and approval, and cross-access is being proposed to adjacent commercial sites to the east and west required by the code. The applicant has not requested variations from the general site development requirements. The proposed use is compatible with existing development pattern in the area. The training school is currently operating on site, and the expansion of the classroom and related offices will not pose impacts to adjacent residential uses to the south. Finally, the floor area ratio proposed is considerably below that permitted by the future land use and in comparison to commercial zoning districts in this area. No objections were received by reviewing agencies, and based on all these considerations, staff recommends approval with conditions, and I may have available if you have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Monsanto. And the Planning Commission, please.
Thank you, Melissa Leinhardt, Planning Commission staff. The subject property is located in the Community Mixed Use 12 Future Land Use category. It is in the urban service area, and it is also located within the limits of the East Lake Orient Park Community Plan. The proposed plan development for a 2,000 square foot building addition and a new office and educational building is compatible with the surrounding development pattern, and it is allowable use within the CMU 12 future land use category. The specific intent of this category is to designate areas that are suitable for urban scale intensities and densities. Churches, schools, and daycare centers are defined as residential support uses by the comprehensive plan and are allowable uses in most future land use categories, so long as their intensity and design are compatible with the surrounding land uses. Future Land Use Element Policy 17.1 allows the consideration of compatible residential support uses within most future land use classifications. Also, Goal 10 and Objective 10-1 of the Community Design component in the future land use element of the comprehensive plan contain policy direction about designing schools that relate to the predominant character of the surroundings. It further states that new school developments should recognize the existing community and be designed in a way that is well connected and compatible with the established scale and character of the area. The proposed plan development is consistent with this policy direction. The site falls within the limits of the East Lake Orient Park Community Plan, which promotes increased educational opportunities within the community plan boundary. As such, the requested plan development is consistent with the vision of this community plan. Based upon those considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed plan development consistent with the future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County, subject to the conditions proposed by Development Services. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody here tonight in support of this request? Is there all in support? Okay, is there a primary speaker by any chance? Just a few minutes each? Okay. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Jimmy Jordan, 14428 Farm Lane, Dover, Florida, 33527. Our organization, Millwright Local 1000, have been on this piece of property over 40 years. What we're proposing is just to expand. Fortunately, our business is getting to a point now where we need to expand. We want to do the same thing we've been doing the whole time. We dispatch our membership from this local, as well as provide training for thousands of residents over the past 40 years. So I would like to go on record as I support the proposed zoning change.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, and next? Good evening.
Good evening, sir. Logan Brown, 1179 Shaw's Fork in Aiken, South Carolina. I'd like to go on record to state that this training facility and the expansion would allow training opportunities for thousands more students. The industries that we train for are all of Florida's power generation, the phosphate mines, pulp and paper, all the industries that are critical to Florida. And by allowing us to have this expansion, we're going to be able to continue top-notch training for millwrights throughout the state of Florida. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Okay, next. Good evening, sir.
How you doing?
Good.
Cliff Tucker. My address is 38942 Car Drive, Zephyr Hills, Florida, 33540. I'm in support of this motion. Excuse me.
It's all right.
Yeah.
Take your time.
Yeah, no. This addition is going to be for our apprenticeship department, which is going to be providing more education for Hillsborough County. People who live in Hillsborough County.
Sure.
I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
And as well as outside of that area too. So it's going to be bringing more commerce to y'all's areas there.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
next. Okay, this gentleman, you're the engineer, you already spoke. Anybody else in support? Okay, seeing none. Is there anybody in opposition to this request? Okay, seeing nobody in opposition. Brian, anything else?
Nothing further from staff.
Okay, and does the applicant need to add anything else to the petition? I'm here, seeing a no. Okay. With that, we're going to close PD 20-0338.
The next item is agenda item D8, rezoning PD 20-0365. The applicant's Broom Homes LLC. The request is rezoned from AS1 to planned development. Stephen Beachy will provide staff recommendation after presentation by the applicant.
Okay. Good evening.
Good evening, Mrs. Scurlow. Michael Horner, 14502 North Dale Mabry Highway, representing Broom Homes LLC. With me this evening is Mr. Jordan Ferralis, a representative of Broom Homes. He will be speaking following Mr. Yates's comments. We do have Michael Yates of Palm Traffic Engineering, who will review traffic issues on this case. The site's 36.5 acres. It's north of Montague Street. It kind of segues from Memorial Highway, which dovetails to the east. It is north of Hillsborough Avenue, major arterial corridor. Currently zoned AS1. It's in the urban service area. Public water and public sewer are going to be connected to, obviously. It is in the Res 4 comp plan. We are seeking a PD, Mrs. Scurlow, for 115 single-family attached townhomes. This comes to you, Mrs. Scurlow, with unanimous recommendations of approval from both Development Services as well as Planning Commission, finding a consistency with all goals, objectives, and policies under the future land use element. We have no objections from any review agency, including EPC and transportation. We have worked hard on this to get here. We have filed a number of options and iterations. Really appreciate staff and the Planning Commission working with us. We really believe this is a good plan, and I'm proud to represent the developer on this one. EPC, Mrs. Scurlow, has delineated the wetlands on this site. Out of the 36.5 acres, about 24.97 acres are upland, with a maximum unit count permitted of 124 units. We are at 115, so we are less than that threshold for the maximum under the Res 4, utilizing the density credit transfer. That equates to an overall density of 3.07 units per acre. We do have 6 existing cell towers that have been permitted prior and separately, located in the north and northeast portions of the site. Those will continue to exist. We have no impact on them. They will have no impact on us, and our plan allows for an access through our development to allow them to have separate access. The wetlands are approximately 11.5 acres. We are developing on only the upland. There is a small portion. It's still oriented. There's a small portion, just scroll of this access drive that is an encroachment. EPC has not recommended any objections or resubmittal of the plans. We have filed those plans with EPC, and their comments are on the record. So we have no building footprints within a wetland. Southwest of the site, actually we are southwest of Alonzo High School. That is a huge public infrastructure improvement with lots of traffic. We think that this is a classic infill development. We're on a major corridor. We're north of Hillsborough Avenue. We have multifamily and RM16 zoning to the south. There are some townhome units there. We also have detached homes to the west that we have been sensitive to in this design. We have worked with both Planning Commission and Development Services for the revised plan that I think achieves clearly a creative design that allows for an infill development, affordable to the price point that now you can't find in the West Chase area, particularly in this area. These will be 2-story. These will be attached, of course, but they will be limited to building clusters no greater than 6. Reduce building mass. We have a detached subdivision to the west, as I noted here. We are proposing a 20-foot buffer to the west, which exceeds the land use equivalency matrix for the buffer. In addition to that, Mrs. Scurlow, we are offering fencing, 100% opaque, 6-foot PVC. In addition to that, 2 rows of tree plantings within that 20 feet. Also, we're proposing a small stormwater pond, so those units do not extend all the way to the right of way. We have worked on a number of options before, and I'll just briefly show what one of those was. By the way, Mrs. Squirrel, we also agreed and we committed on our site plan itself to an illustrative elevation. Again, these are single-family attached with garages. You can see it's an attractive elevation. While this may not be the exact color pattern, exact window placement, we agreed that this would be a representative sample of an elevation that we could commit to. One of the original plans that we filed actually reflected two products, Mr. Squirrel, single-family attached townhomes, which we are proposing tonight. But we tried to cut out small detached lots on that western side to replicate those single-family detached homes on the west side. Unfortunately, we could not do cross-access connectivity for a number of reasons, so we asked for a separate driveway. That opened up Pandora's box of transportation, on access separation, et cetera. Unfortunately, we were unable to execute that. That required a number of design exceptions, administrative variances. Staff said we would encourage clustering, we would encourage a single-family unit product overall, even if it's attached, and we therefore abandoned that option and went back to our single-family attached layout. Might add that this aligns with Pistol Range Road to the south, Mrs. Squirrel. Pistol Range Road does not have connectivity to Hillsborough or to Montague. It does, however, have a pedestrian pathway, and we think that's critical because there's shopping centers, retail office on the south side, and we certainly think that's a reasonable pedestrian connectivity option. All the rest remains open space and green. We have the tree buffer being proposed. There was actually a number of trees already existing along the front. You can see through here that we would like to leave as much as possible so that you will have privacy as well as not being able to see the units from the right-of-way. Again, we commit to the elevation on the plan that we filed. We agree with all the conditions proposed by staff. We have no changes. We have no variations. We have no design exceptions on this request. I have spoken with several neighbors. I want to say months ago, probably March or so, we shared all of our plans, our elevations, our filing documents. I did not hear anything back. A couple of them said don't have any real major objections, except they would make sure that we were not proposing a rental project or multifamily, multi-story. So we're happy to receive that endorsement, if you will call it that. At this time, I'm going to have Mr. Gates come up and review transportation, and then I'll have Mr. Ferralis offer his comments as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Good evening, Michael Yates, Palm Traffic, 400 North Tampa Street, Suite 1500. Just wanted to go through traffic real quick. Michael Horner hit on it briefly. It's a load generating project. We have 836 daily trips, 55 AM peak hour trips, 67 PM peak hour trips. Like Michael Horner related to in the initial conversation, we had a lot of conversations with staff on access for this project. What we ended up with was one single access aligning with the Pistol Range Road right away. If you're familiar with Pistol Range Road, it ends right here at the fire station. There's a little cross access to the fire station. It does go down. There's a pedestrian walkway there. We'll have sidewalk along our frontage. Sidewalk does continue all the way to Alonzo High School to the northeast of us. So there will be full sidewalk along this frontage. The intersections work at acceptable level of service, and there's a full traffic study as part of the zoning file. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
I don't think I have any, but thank you for that. Good evening.
Hey, good evening. My name is Jordan Ferralis with Broom Homes, 6911 Pistol Range Road, Tampa, Florida. The subject site is actually right behind our office building. We've been involved in real estate development locally for multiple generations, and this might be one of the most exciting projects that we've been involved with to date. To deliver one of the first Fitwel certified residential communities in the entire county means a lot. Our founders are very passionate about promoting health and wellness, and the ability to integrate those principles into a community is very meaningful to us. The Fitwell certification promotes community health, fitness, and well-being with a combination of strategies and amenities that help create a live, work, play environment. Not only will our community promote health and fitness through traditional methods, we also plan on integrating our community as much as possible to take advantage of the wonderful green space that naturally exists on site. Unlike most home builders, we're preserving as many trees as possible. Rather than surface parking lots, we're keeping the green space for outdoor yoga and dedicating a large area to be a great lawn for events. Our unique location also shares some amenities off-site, such as the wonderful Upper Tampa Bay Trail that's across the street. This location's truly one of a kind and an excellent opportunity to shield nature from the industrial radio towers that are on site and really enhance the surrounding community. We hope that this business model can serve as a template for others to follow, and we look forward to building this quality community. I also have a letter of support that I received that I'll read on behalf of the writer, Sean Murphy of 11507 Quiet Forest Drive, Tampa, Florida. In regards to case number RZ-STD 20-0365, I am a proponent of the plan development. I have reviewed the proposed site plan and the use proposed, and I find that this development is a reasonable and appropriate infill development to allow efficient use of this property. Based on the plan having no physical unit encroachments into any wetlands, providing a 20-foot buffer to the west of our community, including opaque fencing and 2 rows of trees, and only one access furthest to the east to avoid any traffic congestion, I do not see any negative effects on our community of Champions Forest. Furthermore, I believe this planned development will increase the value of the community by bringing more new development and better tenants to current commercial properties in the surrounding area. Additionally, I find the Fitwell certification appealing as we do promote an active lifestyle in the area with the Upper Tampa Bay Trail within walking distance. Best regards, Sean Murphy. I'll enter this into the record.
All right, thank you for that testimony. Anything else, Mr. Horner? All right, thank you very much. Development Services.
Development Services. Is there anyone from Development Services for this case?
Done here, unless, if you hear from Mr. Beachy, let us know.
For the record, Brian Grady, Hillsborough County Development Services. I think the applicant went in thorough presentations with the project regarding the proposed buffering screen that will provide for compatibility with the adjacent single family to the west. Overall, with the proposed, again, buffering screening and restrictions as outlined in the staff report, staff did find that this proposed townhome project was compatible with the surrounding area, consistent, and recommended approval with conditions. Be happy to answer any questions.
Don't have any, but thank you, Brian. And Planning Commission, please.
Thank you, Melissa Leinhardt, Planning Commission staff. The subject property is in the residential 4 future land use category. It is in the urban service area, and it is also located within the limits of 2 community plans, the Town and Country Community Plan and the Northwest Hillsborough Community Plan. The proposal meets the intent of Objective 1 and Policy 1.2 of the future land use element with 115 townhomes, since it meets the minimum density requirement as outlined in the plan. The proposal for townhomes is also compatible with the surrounding area, as it is in a predominantly medium density residential area with a mix of single family and multifamily dwelling units and nearby neighborhood services and amenities. Objective 16 of the future land use element requires new development to protect existing neighborhoods and communities. The subject site is surrounded by a range of housing types, such as single-family and multifamily, with various densities and lot sizes. The proposed PD is therefore compatible with the future land use policies 16.8 and 1610, which require the new development reflect the overall density and lot sizes of the area and be compatible with the overall area. The request is consistent with Section B of the Northwest Area Community Plan, as it encourages the creation of neighborhoods and communities with both urban and suburban characteristics. It promotes a gradual transition to more urban mixed-use communities that are well-connected for pedestrian use. It also encourages the creation of well-planned community areas for neighbor interaction. As the proposal is planned in an area with nearby amenities and proposes internal connectivity along with a common gathering area, the addition of this townhome development among a community that already has multifamily and single-family residential units would further the overall vision of the Northwest Hillsborough area. The Town and Country Community Plan also provides guidance with respect to enhanced connectivity and pedestrian accessibility in goals 4 and 5 of the plan. While the Town and Country Community Plan encourages shared access points and entry points from side streets, it does not expressly prohibit gated pedestrian and vehicular access into neighborhoods. The plan development is therefore consistent with the Town and Country Community Plan vision. Based upon those considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed plan development consistent with the future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County, subject to the conditions proposed by Development Services. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Melissa. And with that, is there anybody here tonight in support of this request? Okay, seeing none, is there any opposition to the request? Mr. Horner?
Before Mr. Horner
Yes.
backs up, I just, in reviewing the report, the site plan does show the buffering screening along that, I guess, the western boundary of the property. I would just propose we add a condition just making reference to the buffering screening along the western boundary be provided as shown in the site plan. Just to note that, no conditions.
Okay, so it doesn't have a condition
The
now.
conditions are silent, but it's shown in the plan, so they're required to provide it, but I think it'd be appropriate to have a condition just referencing.
As indicated on the.
Yes, correct.
All right, Mr. Horner, before you go on, any concerns about that? Are you okay?
No, I was surprised. We're going to mention all my rebuttal. We're certainly accepting of that condition.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Mr. Scarullo, Michael Horner again for the record. I neglected to mention the numerous amenities on site. I think Mr. Farrell's covered those well. This is a unique opportunity to tie an outdoor opportunity with a shared open space and green space. A lot of people think that you would not develop near cell towers. Well, those days have changed. We have separations in place. We have our property identified as a classic infill development. We've had a number of inquiries, and I used the word affordable. I didn't want you to think this was an affordable housing development. These price points will be rather high, but they will be certainly less than single-family detached. I also neglected to mention that we have Mr. Scott Standard from CSS Engineering here if you had any questions. That concludes our presentation.
Okay, and Brian, just to confirm, it's buffer and screening?
Correct.
Yeah. All right, Mr. Horner, I don't, but thank you, and we'll go ahead and close.
All right, thank you.
All right, close PD 20365.
The next item is agenda item D9, rezoning application PD 20-0366. The applicant is James Austin Meering. The request is a rezone from AS1 to planned development. Colleen Marshall will provide staff recommendation after presentation by the applicant.
Good evening, Mr. Scarullo. My glasses will keep defogging here. I'll go on to my notes. I thought this was a great mask. I paid extra for this super inclusive, you know, it rejects 99.99. Well, it also rejects oxygen. All right, I'll be brief. I am here representing case 20-0366. Again, I'm Michael Horner for the record, 14502 North Dale Mabry Highway, Tampa, 33618. With me tonight is Mr. Reed Fishback, representative of the developer. We'll offer comments at the end of the presentation. We also have Mr. Todd Amadon, who's a professional engineer of Landmark, who will be happy to answer any questions you have. We also have Mr. Yates, traffic engineer with Palm Traffic, who will offer a few comments since we filed a design exception on this request. I'll be brief. It's the last case. Mr. Squirrel, we have unanimous recommendations of approval. It's consistent with all goals, policies, and objectives of the comp plan. We appreciate working with Planning Commission staff. We have approval from Development Services. All the conditions are agreeable to us. We have no objections or changes proposed. This is a 57.8 acre tract, west side of Gallagher Road, north of Gore Road, and east of McIntosh. This is just north of the I-4 corridor, as you can see on the south part of this graphic. Again, we have no objections from review agencies. We're seeking a PD to allow 57 single-family lots. We are Res 1 in the comp plan. We are rural service area, so therefore well and septic tank. We are zoned AS1, which is most of the property in this area. We are in the middle of a sea of Res 1, so we are certainly consistent with the comp plan. We have agreed to cluster, or I should say restrict, lots along Gallagher Road. You can see also in the comp plan, we have SMU 6 south of I-4. This is all Res 1. I'm sorry. Pointing out we're in the middle of Res 1 and SMU 6 existing south of I-4. The site plan is a bubble plan, Mrs. Squirrel. It essentially allows for and restricts us to 1 acre lots west of Gallagher Road so that we can achieve that rural character and maintain it. We are asking for half-acre lots on the interior. We do have some wetlands that we have worked through with EPC. We don't have any objections that I'm aware of. Gallagher Road is a main road in this area. It does have some limitations in terms of pavement width. I'm going to have Mr. Yates address what the design exception calls for in terms of other improvements that we have offered. We have a lot of mature trees throughout the area. This site is not one of them. This is a agricultural production area from years ago. I'm here to tell you, and I think Mr. Fishback will also advise that production is no longer feasible. It is going to be very difficult to go back into egg production. That unfortunately is a characteristic of a lot of agriculture properties in this part of the county. We offer internal road construction access that we agreed to at the southwest corner per traffic staff. We recognize ASC 1, as I indicated, in the area. We don't have half-acre lot zoning, but we are in a Res 1, and I can assure you this close to I-4, where we have a lot pattern that is much smaller than 1 half-acre lots around the I-4 corridor to the north. This will certainly be setting the trend that we believe is consistent with the comp plan for years to come. We don't have any objections to the conditions. I'm going to let Mr. Yates address transportation issues, design exceptions, and Mr. Fishbach will close. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Michael Yates, Palm Traffic, 400 North Tampa Street. I'll be brief. This is from a trip generation standpoint, a load trip generator. It's 620 daily trips, 45 AM peak hour trips, 59 PM peak hour trips. This project will have one access to Gallagher Road. It's going to align with the Chase Creek Drive subdivision to Stony Creek on the east side. We are proposing a northbound left turn lane on Gallagher Road. So there'll be a northbound left into the site. We have a design exception in. Michael Williams has reviewed it and found it approvable. But basically what it does is add a paved, a shoulder, a 6-foot shoulder, 4-foot paved, 2-foot stabilized. And it would go from the entry here down to the curve at Gore Road, which is right down here. And the one exception is there's a little culvert bridge there that already has a shoulder built into it. we're not going to touch that, but it would be to improve that shoulder that does not exist today. They're 10-foot travel lanes, so that would help enable the additional width that is required. We would provide sidewalk along our project frontage as well. And so that's it. I'm happy to answer any questions. There's a full traffic study as part of the record.
I think I got it. Thank you, Mr. Yates. Good evening.
Good evening. Reed Fishbach, 510 Vandenberg Drive, Brandon, Florida. I'm here on behalf of the property owner. Their family has been in farming in this area for about 27 years. And it just came a time when we needed to invest in looking at what this property could be in the future and what was an efficient use for the property. We are very passionate about agriculture. It's currently being farmed today, will be continued to be farmed in the foreseeable future. But with this proximity to the interstate and being a little far north of a lot of the farmland in the area, felt it was time to get our zoning in place. If you have any questions,
I don't, but
please
thank
let
you
me
for
know.
that. Okay, and development services.
Good evening, Colleen Marshall, Development Services. The applicant stated the request tonight is to rezone approximately 57.8 acres to planned development to allow for 57 single-family conventional dwelling units. One access point off Gallagher Road is proposed. The area is primarily residential and agricultural development. Proposed single-family residential development will maintain a density of 1 unit per acre, with 1/2 acre lots within the project and 1 acre lots along Gallagher Road. Wetlands exist along the north, south, and west property boundaries, and proposed stormwater pond locations provide a buffer between the 1/2 acre lots and surrounding single-family residential development with AS1 zoning. No agency objections were received by staff. Staff recommends approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that. And the Planning Commission.
Thank you, Ms. Melissa Leinhardt, Planning Commission staff. The subject property is located in the Residential 1 Future Land Use category. It is in the rural area, and it is not located within the limits of a community plan. The applicant requests to rezone the subject property from agricultural single-family 1 to planned development, allowing for 57 single-family lots at 1 dwelling unit per acre with 1 acre and 1/2 acre lot sizes. The application proposes that the 1/2 acre lots be located internal to the subject property and the 1 acre lots front Gallagher Road. This proposed planned development is consistent with the Residential 1 Future Land Use category. The properties surrounding the subject site are developed predominantly with agricultural and large lot residential land uses, which are compatible with the applicant's request. The request is consistent with Objective 4 of the Future Land Use element, as the subject property is in the rural area, which is reserved for large lot, low-density residential uses. Overall, the rezoning would allow for development that is consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the future land use element of the comprehensive plan and is compatible with the existing development pattern found within the surrounding area. Based upon those considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed plan development consistent with the future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County, subject to conditions proposed by the Development Services Department. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And anybody tonight in support of this request? I see none. I think we have one in opposition signed up. Did not call in. Just to make sure, Mr. Kenneth Perry, nowhere to be found? Okay. Anything else from staff?
Nothing further.
Mr. Horner? No, sir. All right, thank you. With that, we'll close PD 20-0366.
The next item is agenda item D10, rezoning PD 20-0447. The applicant is David B. Dickey. The request is to rezone from ASC 1 to a planned development. Tanya Chabella will provide staff recommendation at the presentation of the applicant.
Okay, thank you. And the applicant?
David, you are muted still.
Thank you very much. My name is David Dickey. I am the applicant for the rezoning request. The property address is 2408 Graves Road Brandon, Florida. I reside at 401 Patica Road Northeast, St. Petersburg. And the rezoning request is being presented with no request for variances or any exceptions. The 7.24 acre parcel is currently utilized as ASC 1. It has a single family residence and currently is a green belted piece of property being currently used as agriculture for cattle. The property actually has some rich history. It used to be a dairy farm, one of many in Hillsborough County, and the seller of the property was quite interested in this rezoning development to a mini self-storage facility, which we're presenting today. Thank you very much. I'm representing both the seller and myself as the applicant, and would like the staff, who's been wonderful, both the development services staff, the EPC, the planning commission, and everyone else through our COVID pandemic has done a great job facilitating these rezoning request meetings. And I'd like to just turn it over to staff to allow them to make their reports. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And the development services.
Tanya Chapella, Development Services. The applicant is requesting to rezone approximately 7.24 acres from ASC 1, Agricultural Single Family Conventional, to Planned Development to allow for a proposed 80,000 square feet mini warehouse facility, agricultural uses, and the maintenance of the existing single family dwelling. The subject site is located on the east side of the Interstate 75, approximately 1,500 feet southwest the intersection of Columbus Drive and Broadway Center Boulevard in Brandon. The surrounding area is mainly a single family and multi-family residential development approved for single family units and agricultural uses. A warehouse facility and commercial uses exist in the nearby area. To the north, and across the Interstate 75 to the west are several parcels zone PD approved for manufacturing and warehouse uses. And there is another PD approved for warehouse distribution and light industrial uses. Those lots are being occupied with light industrial uses and other commercial uses. So staff finds the request compatible with the surrounding development pattern and recommends approval with conditions. So pretty much the mini warehouse uses shall be following the CI, commercial intensive restrictions per the Land Development Code. The agricultural area will be following the ASC 1 zoning district, and there is a proposed 20-foot building setback, type B buffer, to the adjacent property to the west, which is a PD zone residential. So with this, I conclude my my report, my presentation. Thank you.
For that. And the Planning Commission.
Thank you, Melissa Leinhardt, Planning Commission staff. The subject property is located in the urban mixed use 20 future land use category. It is in the urban service area and also within the limits of the Brandon Community Plan. The subject property is designated as UMU 20 on the future land use map, and the maximum floor area ratio for this future land use category is 1.0. The application requests 80,000 square feet, which would result in a FAR floor area ratio of 0.25. The proposed intensity is well below the maximum allowable intensity in this future land use category and is therefore consistent. The site is located within the Interstate 75 corridor. According to Objective 34 of the future land use element, future land use plan categories within the Interstate 75 corridor must permit urban level intensities that will encourage mixed use patterns of development. Policy 34.1 of the future land use element allows for developments at urban level intensities commensurate with the designated land use categories, but which do not endanger the viability and or aesthetic characteristics of conservation and preservation areas. The proposed planned development facilities urban level intensities is an appropriate high intensity land use category. The proposed development provides urban level intensity while ensuring the integrity of existing residential development is protected through established techniques and the principles of land use transitions, such as buffering and screening within the corridor. The subject property is also located within the limits of the Brandon Community Plan and is in the Urban Center District on the Brandon Character Districts map. This district contains the most intense land uses and includes regional shopping areas and the State Road 60 Overlay District. Commercial and mixed-use developments are encouraged with varying building heights between 3 and 10 stories. The proposed planned development requests an 80,000 square foot storage facility within the Urban Center District. The request for an intense commercial development is consistent with the vision of the Brandon Community Plan's Urban Center District. Based upon those considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed planned development consistent with the Future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County, subject to the conditions proposed by Development Services. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Anybody here tonight in support of the request? Okay, seeing none, is there any opposition to the request? Nope. And anything from staff?
Just one housekeeping item. There's a typo on the first page of the report, and the subject line should be PD. It says PRS, so we'll correct that on the first page of the staff report. On the page 1, the cover page. Cover page of the staff report at the top says PRS 2447.
Oh, gotcha.
Should be PD 2447, so we'll make that correction. Other than that,
Thank you, Brian.
no additional comments.
Okay, is the applicant still on the line?
I am.
Okay, I just want to make sure that he doesn't have anything else to add.
No, thank you very much, and greatly appreciate the opportunity to participate this way. And again, thank all the staff and the commenting agencies for their excellent work and great support and direction.
You, sir. And with that, we'll close PD 20-0447.
The final item on tonight's agenda is D11, is rezoning application PD 20-0479. The applicant's owned by West Bay Incorporated. The request is rezoned from AR to planned development. Michelle Heinrich will provide staff recommendation of the presentation by the applicant.
Good evening.
Good evening, Cammie Corbett, 101 East Kennedy Boulevard, Suite 3700 for the applicant. Procedural issue before we begin. None of our applicant team has been sworn.
Okay.
So
Is that it? Is that the procedural issue?
Well, that and the procedural issue, it's not really like a procedure, but just from a matter of procedure, I know that we have at least a couple of people who have opposition to this application online. And before we go all through the testimony and wait and check and see if they're all good with audio and video, I would like to do that now and also get them sworn to make sure, I want to be sure that they have the ability and they're hearing what's being said in the room, and so they can comment, because I think that's important.
Okay, well, it is important. Is there a way to do it?
We have checked with Richard Bennett and Charles Watcher. They are both on photo or video and audio. We do have Judith Mercier signed up, but has not checked in.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so we got a lot of echo over here, and I got basically that Richard Bennett and Charles Wachter are available. Is it the other one that you're missing?
Correct.
Okay, so you're missing Judith Mercier.
She's not going to attend. This is Charles Wachter. She's my partner. She's not going to attend.
Charles just said she won't be attending.
She will be available.
Will not.
We'll know.
Oh, I'm sorry. Charles on. Charles, could you repeat that?
Yeah, Charles Wachter for New World Communications. My address is 100 North Tampa Street, Tampa, Florida, 33602. Judy Mercier will not be attending this evening, and we will also be asking for testimony through Richard Bennett, who is available. I think we're also joined by Chris Reed with Fox, but in terms of presentations, it will just be me and Mr. Bennett.
Is Mr. Bennett on the video?
Yes, I am.
Everybody rise that hasn't been sworn, including you virtual people. Thank you. You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you.
Okay. And so with that, just in the interest of time, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Isabel Albert, who's going to make our presentation. She'll be followed by Steve Henry, our transportation consultant, and then I'll come back up to the podium and talk about our communications with both the New World folks and some of the other parties of record.
Great, thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Isabel Albert with Half Associates, 1000 North Ashley Drive, Suite 900. I'm assisting the applicant and the rest of the team as part of this rezoning. Thank you. So what we have here tonight is actually another phase of a larger master plan development that's known as Hawkstone by Homes by West Bay. Basically, this is really hard to control. So what we have here, this is Stogie Ranch, and it is part of a larger residential master plan. And it started with Hinton Ranch in 2016, and then in 2017, we had B&D Ranch join the community, and then eventually Okerland here also joined. And so this is a new addition. It's all part of the RP2 future land use. It's part of a community plan of Riverview and South Shore, but it's also located within the aggregated plan village that's identified in policy 33.3 of the comprehensive plan. So what we have is proposing 136 single-family homes, 2 units to the acres on approximately 68 acres, 30 acres of which is dedicated to wetland areas over here and stormwater ponds, mitigation area. And the remainder of the site here is for the 136 single-family units. Planning Commission staff found the request consistent with the comprehensive plan. Development Services also found it compatible with the surrounding area, and therefore we have recommendations of approval, and there was no objections from reviewing agencies. Full access are proposed on the north side on Boyette Road, as well on the east side, Boyette Road. There will be definitely some sidewalks adjacent to the property there. And in anticipation of potential future developments similar to ours, we have a future cross-access, potential cross-access over here to the west. So the RP2 has some policies that we need to meet, as well as the Land Development Code has additional design requirements. One of which is if you wanted to apply the 2 units to the acre, you have to have a clustering of 3.5 dwelling units to the acres, which we're proposing here in the yellow area. As you can see, is the majority of the site south of there is wetlands, mitigation, and ponds. So therefore, the clustering is occurring here on the northern portion of the site. The majority of the units will have views to open space. That includes the buffer areas, the ponds and the wetlands, but as well as the internal large pedestrian pathways located here across. Water and wastewater will be provided by the developer. There is a water main located over here, and wastewater is located further to the south on Boyette Road. The Land Development Code provides the ability to provide some village greens in lieu of the commercial village node, as long as those village greens have a square footage greater than the required commercial. In this case, it's required approximately 1,800 square feet of commercial. But the village green that we're proposing are approximately 10,000 square feet each. Part of the requirement is that the village green has to be located within a half a mile of the majority of the residential units, and therefore, this is why we have 2 village nodes located to the north and to the south. Also required is to be bordered by streets. The northern village node is bordered by 2 streets to the north and to the south. To the north and to the south. And then to meet the intent, this is why we have this pedestrian connectivity that does connect those 2 streets. So it has that intention of being bordered by the 4 streets. And over here to the south, we have the road on one side, and then we again have that pedestrian pathway coming over here with a pond area to the other side. So it's being bordered. And it's part of our master plan development. Now comes the buffering. Part of the requirement to address compatibility with low-density development was required to have a 250-foot wide buffer. No screening requirement, but simply a buffer of 250 feet. And that would be required surrounding 70% of the parcels bordering on the border of the parcel. That was for the intent that, anticipating that your next door neighbor would be low density, you would have to provide this However, in different scenarios, you might be next to an existing planned development similar to yours, or a planned village similar to yours, or you're to other adjacent, which the 250-foot buffer would not be necessarily required. This is an instance over here. What we have is to the south, so the large wetlands and stuff like that, it is easy to provide that 250-foot buffer. But the bonus is here is it is landscaped with the wetland areas over here. On the east side, we have that 50-foot buffer. We're providing a 50-foot buffer here with landscaping. And the reason is over here, where you see that roundabout, this is the B&D farm, which is developed similar to ours. So there would not be a compatibility concerns there. And over here, we have this open land ELOT property. Again, no concerns with compatibility there. On this side over here, we are providing, there's some little residential density over here. And so to be sensitive to that, we're providing a 100-foot buffer, but that buffer will be screened. Unlike that 250-foot buffer where non-screening is required, we're providing a 100-foot buffer screening, and I'll explain a little bit more on the screening after that. And the zero buffer to the next of us is the communication tower, open space, green space, and if ever it's going to be developed, it would be probably most likely developed similar to our proposal. That's why we were proposing a cross-access, and so therefore the buffer is not, it would not accomplish anything there. Now, Boyett Road is a scenic corridor. There are some landscaping requirement for that, which includes planting at every 100-foot center. But to add to that, they're also proposing evergreen trees at every 40 feet center. So that would be put in between. So just to show as much as screening as possible. So part of the policy 33.3 does permit waivers to the required commercial, as long as when you're part of an aggregated village, which is we are, as long as there's available commercial within a 2-mile radius. And so this graphic does show that. You show our site over here, and they have that 2-mile radius, and Triple Creek is located over here. Now, Triple Creek has been approved for 70,000 square feet of commercial, of which 55,000 needs to be required for the Triple Creek development. And the remainder is being utilized for other planned village in the area. That includes the B&D Ranch, the Okerland, and Talvera. And then adding ours to the 1,800 requirement, eliminating that from what's available, does still have some remaining square footage. So if you look at over here, you have that 70,000 square foot approved. This is what's required for Triple Creek. This is what's remaining. And then with the other development, and as well as adding us to ours, like that 8,000, which is being reduced or deducted from the 14,000. And there's still 6,500 square feet left to be used. Now, that being said, B&D Ranch in Okerland, I originally started working on that in 2017. From that point on, we were taking the position and are still taking the position that the commercial requirement on site is not necessarily sustainable. It's hard to keep it viable. It's hard on the demand, and not necessarily the demand's there. And we've been working really hard with staff to try to find a solution to make this work. Part of it was this aggregated village that we created, because we realized that, just each planned development having their own commercial is not feasible. And so with this development, as they're going further, the applicant did hire a professional specifically for that, to analyze what will be the demand for, for your site, and what can survive on your site. And so that study is in the background, or in the record. And the summary is basically saying what we've been saying is that there's not enough household to generate that much demand, that the existing supply in Fishhawk and all around there is sufficient to meet the build out residential of not this specific plan development, but the whole build out of Hawkstone. The evolving trend in e-commerce, what we've been experiencing in the last 6 months, all shows that brick and mortar is not necessarily as necessary and required to serve the population. And so, and also the land development code needs to be updated to reflect that. So with that, I will transfer to Mr. Steve. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Steve Henry, Links and Associates, 5023 West Laurel, Tampa 33607. Talk a little bit about traffic this evening. We have conducted the traffic analysis for the project. And I'm going to use the Elmo here. That shows up. Okay. Okay. So first, we'll talk about the roadway system in the area. So we've used the current level of service report from Hillsborough County. So Boyette Road in the area is actually level service C. It actually operates at a volume to capacity ratio of 0.27, meaning it's only using 27% of the capacity. Boyette Road is operating at level service B, which has a VC ratio of 0.25, again, operating at 25% of the capacity of the road. In addition to that, there have been a number of improvements. Let me go back. So Boyette Road is considered to be a substandard road. This graphic here illustrates the Transportation Technical Manual of what a standard road is defined in Hillsborough County. The reality is 80 to 90% of the roads in Hillsborough County don't meet the TTM standards. However, Boyette Road has had some improvements in the recent history. This is a picture of Boyette Road in 2019, early 2019. I took one east and westbound. This picture was actually taken this week. So the county has gone through and repaved Boyette Road in this area. This again, eastbound and westbound. In addition to that, the developer, which I think was shown on our previous picture, and I've got another one if you'd like, has actually taken the intersection of Boyette and Boyette Road, which you can see the configuration that it was, has now turned it into a roundabout to make it a safer, better operating intersection. And I actually have got, this is this is when it was under construction, but kind of gives you an idea of what they have done, pulling it to the south and then putting in a roundabout. This leg here is actually the one that's built, and they took out the other two legs. The developer has done that. Then in addition to that, as a part of...
I'm sorry, the developer did that?
Yes, the developer of Hawkstone.
Yeah.
And the same developer that's doing this one did those improvements. Then in addition to that, what we've committed to is on this section, we've got two different typical sections that we're building. This is the roundabout that I just showed you. This is the subject property. So we're building two sections, section B and then section A on the east-west section. And essentially what we're doing is we're going in and putting in paved shoulders that are currently aren't out there today. And they're going to be 6-foot shoulders, 4-foot paved. This is the same typical section that was put on Boyette Road as a part of Hawkstone. So not only did they do the roundabout, but then they also improved Boyette Road along their frontage. And so we're going to carry that same improvement from the roundabout around to our western boundary. That concludes my presentation, unless you've got any questions.
I don't, but thank you for that.
Thank you.
Mr. Hearingmaster, we are running short on time, and I would like to ask that we allocate 2 to 3 minutes of my rebuttal time to now, because it's important to New World and to Fox that we say certain things into the record before they speak.
I think that's fine.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, we can go back to the presentation.
So let's add 3 minutes to the 3:39. 3:39 will be the total.
One of the benefits we had from the hearing being canceled last time is it gave us the opportunity to meet with the folks that are on the line this evening who have the property directly to the west of us. And as you are aware from the record, they did submit a letter of opposition on expressing some concerns. We were able to meet via Zoom 2 or 3 times to share screens and share maps and have really detailed discussions and healthy discussions about what their issues and concerns are. And what's represented on this PowerPoint is those same bullet points that said when we met with the applicant, the owners, and it's stating what we're agreeing to. I'm going to speak to them, but we shared this with New World, and their attorney had the opportunity to review it and was in agreement that this was the substance of what we talked about and what we agreed to. First, the future cross-access is still a significant concern for them. We understand that. We don't object to the removal. We're doing it because it's what the county has said is required, and so whatever is your pleasure with respect to that issue is fine with us either way.
But your plan only calls for the construction to the western boundary, right?
Correct. Correct. And they have a concern about that, and they'll talk to you about that. We have agreed to an additional fencing screening condition along the 0-foot buffer area. And I'll just flip to that real quick. And we had proposed language this morning to staff that said developer will install a 6-foot opaque fence along the western boundary line, a minimum of 5 feet offset from folio, and then that's the folio of that property. The minimum 5-foot offset is to allow them sufficient room to hang the signs that they are required to hang on the outside of their signs for regulatory purposes. I do know as housekeeping, that condition was shared with staff, and transportation staff has some additional conditions they would like to add if the cross-access connection remains.
That's a 5 feet offset from folio, the 498 folio.
Yeah.
Is that onto this property or onto?
No, it's inside of the Stogie property.
Onto your property?
Yes, it's 5, like we're going to leave 5 feet between the fence and our property line.
Okay.
And then going back, one of the biggest issues of contention was an existing culvert that straddles both properties. And there was some disagreement about how that occurred, or some lack of understanding on our part, because our owner purchased the property and it was there, but clearly.
Is this some north-south culvert on the western boundary? Is that?
I will show you a picture.
Okay.
It is east-west, and it's down more towards the wetland area. And that's the portion of it that's on the Stogie Ranch property. And this is a picture taken by the Water Management District. That's why we landed on this picture. It was probably one of the clearest pictures, and we all understood where it came from and what it was. And also the Water Management District knows what we're specifically all talking about. So we utilize this picture just for purposes of the record, and letting you know where that was. And it straddles east-west. There were some flooding issues in the past on the property. They were caused by an unrelated issue. They've since been resolved.
On which property?
On both properties. And then back to that, and with respect to the existing culvert, like I said, we agreed to a zoning condition for the fencing because that's appropriate for rezoning. We're not agreeing to a condition with respect to the zoning with respect to the culvert, but we have agreed that we are not going to use it, and that as long as the regulatory agencies allow us to remove it, we will remove it. We also have agreed that we will provide a courtesy copy of the construction plans for the stormwater system and the Water Management District permitting to the adjacent owner. Obviously, they're public records, but we want them to timely know when they're being submitted, and so they have the opportunity to review. And so that's what we agreed to from them. And I'll save the comments on the other for rebuttal.
Okay, great. Well, so final question, did you reach some sort of compromise at that point, or is there still more?
I believe it is my understanding of our compromise that I'll let them speak for themselves, but they will withdraw their objection to the rezoning, other than the objection to the cross-access.
Gotcha.
Okay. But I'll let them speak for themselves.
All right. So with that, we'll hear from Development Services.
Hi, good evening. This is Michelle Heinrich, Development Services. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we are. Go ahead.
Oh, great. Okay, just to touch on some of the points brought up on the applicant's review of the application. This is a rezoning from AR zoned property. The property size is approximately 68 acres, and the PD will allow for a maximum of 136 single-family units, and that is a 2-unit per acre density. as opposed to the existing density allowed under AR zoning, which is 1 unit per 5 acres. This density is potentially permitted in the RP2 future land use category when developed in a planned village development pattern per the LDC. The applicant already touched on the primary components of the planned village, which I will just for record purposes briefly cover in my review of this application. The first one would be the clustering requirement. There is a minimum clustering ratio of 3.5, and this requires the preservation of open space to shrink the developable area and thereby cluster the lots in a certain area of the site. For this project of 136 lots, to meet the clustering ratio minimum, they need a little over 29 acres of open space area to remain undeveloped. The applicant is meeting that requirement. And in this case, the open space acreage is above the amount of wetlands acreage on the site. So it is in excess of the wetlands. Secondly, there is a requirement for the location of uses. The project is to be a compact project that is walkable, and because of that, that's partly achieved with the clustering of residential. And then the applicants are to provide on-site commercial. In times when the on-site commercial is not provided, a village green is required. And that's to meet the same size and distance requirement that is required for the commercial. In this case, there is a commercial square footage requirement of 1,836 square feet. And the commercial is supposed to be located, 90% of the residential is supposed to be located within half mile. In this case, the applicants are instead proposing 2 village greens. Combined, that greatly exceeds the minimum amount of square footage required, which is, in this case, they're providing 20,000 square feet total. And they are located in compliance with the LDC. One of the village greens, or actually I should say both of them, do not meet the requirement to have streets on all sides. However, staff does feel the intent of that requirement is still being met given their location relative to the residential lotting pattern. As you saw the applicant show, one of those is more internally located. It still fronts on 2 major streets of the project, but it's available for pedestrian access in all directions. In terms of the on-site commercial, as you heard Ms. Albert touch upon, the site is located within a sub-area of RP2 called the aggregate area. And per the comprehensive plan, projects of this size in the aggregate area have the option of aggregating with another planned village to meet their commercial requirements, provide their own on-site commercial to meet the requirements, or as the applicant is choosing to do, and they touched on in their presentation, look at what is developed within 2 miles of the aggregate area to see if that if there's excess commercial square footage. That is the option they are using for this project. Staff has reviewed that table provided by the applicant and does not object, and that goes into much greater detail in the report if you wanted to look into that. Also, that's required for plain villages is the perimeter buffer. 70% of the boundaries are to provide a 250-foot wide, it's called a compatibility buffer, because it's assumed that the areas may be developed in proximity to projects of a lesser intensity. This project reduces that percentage to 44.4%. That will have the 250-foot buffer. However, a little over 40% will provide buffers of 50 and 100 feet in width with landscaping. So combined, 84.6% of the project will have buffers. Only 15.4% will not have a buffer. And as you saw in the applicant's exhibit, that area is in the northwest boundary of the property. And property to the west where no buffer is provided is a AR zoned parcel. It's 164 acres in size, and it is currently developed with a TV and radio tower. This is not viewed as a low density residential development in staff's analysis that would warrant a compatibility buffer. Therefore, we did not raise any objections to a 0-foot buffer being proposed there. Also, we would note that that area is in the RP2 future land use category, just like this project. So a similar project could be later down the road be developed in that area. And it did provide a logical area for a vehicular connection. So a step out along the west is proposed. We do know that there are some concerns in regards to that step out, and James Ratliff is available on the line to speak to that, being as we understand that there are some concerns raised by the Western property owner and also some agreements that the applicant has made. So James Ratliff would like the opportunity to speak to that if you would like to hear from him now or after the applicants or after the opponent testimony is received. And lastly, I'll just state that we did not receive any objections and the project has been found to be consistent with the comprehensive plan, and we therefore recommend approval subject to conditions. I'm available if you have any questions.
Okay, well, thanks for all that, Michelle. James, are you there?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please stand by. James, can you hear us?
Yes.
It seems to me like it might be better to get information from you once we hear from opposition in testimony. But I thought I'd give you the chance in case you need to precede it with any information you want to get right out. So if you follow me, let me know.
Sure. Yeah. I'd be happy to kind of separate it into two areas. I think it might be helpful at this juncture, and I'm happy to defer this part if you would like. But we did go ahead and work out condition language that we would find acceptable relative to the potential fencing issue that the applicant mentioned. And so this was kind of developed late this afternoon, and so I know the opposition hasn't had a chance to hear that, so they might benefit from being able to hear that if you think that's appropriate at this time.
And so that language, I wouldn't have that yet, would I?
No, sir. It was developed late this afternoon. We were able to talk it over with the applicant barely before the ZHM hearing started, but we were not able to get a hard copy or anything to you, so I will have to read that into the record tonight.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. All right. That's good, James. Thanks for that information. And let's go ahead and ask for the Planning Commission's summary.
Thank you, Melissa Leinhardt, Planning Commission staff. The subject property is located in the residential planned 2 future land use category. It is in the rural area and is within the limits of the Riverview Community Plan and the South Shore Area-Wide Systems Plan. The applicant proposes to develop the subject property at 2 dwelling units per acre. According to Future Land Use Policy 33.3, the residential Plan 2 future land use category permits to development at 2 dwelling units per gross acre if certain requirements are met. The neighborhood commercial needs of the project can be met by existing or planned neighborhood commercial services located either within the aggregated plan village or within a 2-mile radius from the boundary of the primary development of the aggregated plan village. A waiver to the requirement for on-site commercial within the project has been submitted for review. According to the application, in lieu of on-site commercial, 2 village greens, also known as a village square, are requested to be provided. The waiver asserts that there is ample commercial within the aggregated planned village area and within 2 miles of this area. The application identifies available commercial square footage within the Fishhawk, Rodine Barrow Pit, and Triple Creek developments. For the conditions of approval, each village green is required to be at least 10,000 square feet in size. Each village green will be improved with amenities, such as but not limited to 1 or more of the following: landscaping, walkways, benches, fountains, gazebos, bark park, playground equipment, and or similar amenities. Planning Commission staff has reviewed the application and has determined that the proposed plan development fulfills the intent of and is consistent with the RP2 future land use category and is eligible to develop at 2 dwelling units per gross acre. Planned developments are required to provide pedestrian and transportation connectivity and access points are provided along the northern and eastern boundaries of the site, while a future cross-access is provided to the west. The site plan proposes pedestrian and vehicular connectivity throughout the site. The application requests a waiver from the 250-foot buffer. However, the applicant has agreed to conditions of approval requiring buffers ranging from 50 to 100 feet as depicted on the site plan. The subject property is located within the limits of the Riverview Community Plan, and the proposed plan development requests a maximum, a minimum lot size of 4,000 square feet. Different lot sizes through this area reflect the vision of the Riverview Community Plan by encouraging attractive residential development that complements the surrounding character of the area and also promotes housing diversity. The proposed residential development will be comparable and compatible to the development pattern in the area and would further promote housing diversity. Based upon those considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed plan development consistent with the future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County, subject to the conditions proposed by the Development Services Department. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. All right, is there anybody here tonight in support of this request? Seeing none, I know we have some opposition comments ready to go. So let's go ahead and do those.
Thank you. Good evening, Hearing Master Scarola. This is Charles Wachter, 100 North Tampa Street, Tampa, Florida, 33602. I'm joined by Richard Bennett and also Chris Reed, but Mr. Bennett is going to give the testimony concerning the property. What I wanted to do, first of all, is clarify the situation. Ms. Corbett is correct when she mentioned the neighborhood concerns and the agreements and representations. And we agreed to withdraw our overall opposition to the zoning change and reserve all of our rights going forward with respect to stormwater, wetlands, other development permits, and everything else. But for today's purposes, we're withdrawing our overall objection, which we had submitted in the record, except for the one area, one particular issue, and that is this future cross access. The future cross access anticipates a cross access onto the New World Communications property. New World owns the entire length of the adjacent property, and Mr. Bennett's going to be able to explain how the New World property, which is otherwise known as Fox 13 Tower, is unique and different from a typical radio tower or cell phone tower. This is the largest, most well-developed tower in our entire area. The investment was incredible. It is permanently invested in this entire property. It is not going to be changed, used, or moved or developed into residential at any time in the future. And so therefore, the future cross-access is not only completely, would be completely useless in the sense of not going anywhere because it's never going to be able to cross the Fox property. But in addition, Mr. Bennett's going to be able to testify and tell you a little bit about why even leading a road up to that point and dead ending it is going to create problems too. Our main concern is the safety and security of this tower. It's extremely important for communications in our area. The maintenance within this particular area is critical. It is subject to wetlands and stormwater. And this particular future cross access basically is set up to either dead end or dump directly into the Fox property. So what I'd like to be able to do at this point, if I could, is turn over our remaining time to Mr. Bennett so that he can give you more detail on that topic.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Richard Bennett, representative for New World Communication of Tampa, also known as WTVT, is one of our properties that we manage. The address is 3213 West Kennedy Boulevard. That is in Tampa, Florida, 33609 or 34609. Sorry, one of the two. What I would like to do is share my screen real quick, just so I could share an overview of the property as it pertains to New World Communication. And this is an overview of the site. This large area, or this area right here, is the development site that's asking for rezoning. Right next door, this is WTVT. We own approximately 164 acres. This facility has been in operation since 1955 with various antennas and antenna towers on the site.
Mr. I'm sorry, may I interject real briefly? This is Cameron Clark with the County Attorney's Office. Mr. Scarola, can you hear me?
And Mr. Clark.
Yeah, I just want to clarify something. There's a electronic presentation being shown. I just wanted to have it memorialized if this was included in the record, if it was previously submitted, because virtual app participants are required to submit any materials prior to the hearing, at least 2 days prior to the hearing. I just wanted to see if I could get that confirmed.
Good point, Mr. Bennett. Can you confirm that this information was submitted into the record?
Mr. Charles, will you confirm where we presented these, or you presented these exhibits, correct?
Yes, this is Charles Wachter. Again, we did submit this on July 17th, and all of these slides have already been previously submitted into the record.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for the interruption.
Good enough?
No, it's fine. And I'm only planning on using 2 of the slides that are presented, and the first one is Exhibit 1, which is just the overview.
Mr. Clark, I'm sorry, did you say that was acceptable?
Yes, as long as he stated it was submitted previously, that's fine, and I'm sorry for the interruption.
Thank you, Mr. Clark, for looking out for it. Mr. Bennett, go ahead.
Thank you. So anyway, built in 1955, continuous operation since that day. We've had numerous towers on that site. This tower that we currently have is 446 meters tall. In feet, it's about 1,463 feet. It is one of the largest structures in Florida, and came at great cost. We are currently investing in the property. I invested large capital last year. We are currently in the process of investing additional capital this year, and am getting and in the quoting process for a project that will be a 20-year project. It's what we call the Next Gen TV, also known as ATSC 3.0. It is the next generation of television that's going to
Is
allow.
this part of the large antenna farm that's out in that direction? Is it part of that whole network of antennas that's out there?
We are solely by ourselves due to the site, because of the size of our tower.
So is it separated from the rest of that?
Yes.
Every pilot kind of looks out for that antenna network that's out in that direction. This is separate from that?
That is part of the antenna network. There's within that blue circle, there's probably 4 antennas in that area.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Basically, our concerns are with security and safety. As I'm sure you guys are aware, we are part of the FEMA communication plan for emergencies and homeland security. We have concerns, and I'm going to switch to the next slide. What we have done is we've taken the SWIFMA map and overlaid their property design approximately over the area. The main reason I want to show this is, as you see, there is the yellow double arrow through path. This just dead ending onto our property as an open road would invite individuals to walk right onto the property, and that path is within approximately 500 feet of one of our anchors on the and it's on the northeast side. I don't know if you can see my arrow, but that area right there is one of the anchors for the top of the tower. It causes concern from a safety standpoint of people being able to walk on this property, because as an FCC licensed facility, we have to put safety and protection into place to prevent anything from happening to it or anything happening to anyone that gets on that property. Part of the reason we've asked for the fencing was to address that, but also we have to, by law, have up caution signs on the property that express the hazards that are on the site. In the access and connectivity portion of the application, it states in the event the parcel to the west is redeveloped and future cross access is shown. It also states the PD internal roads will be local, public, and not gated. One of our concerns is that this road will allow for this wonderful 164 acres to become a walking area for neighborhoods around the area for an easy access into our property. This is highly concerning because.
Ask you.
Sure.
So I understand the point. The anchor location that you show is really closer to Boyette Road. Is it not in a more precarious position related to Boyette than it would be to the terminus of this proposed?
It is blocked by gates, fences, and that pond, and it is it's over 250 to the road. But to access it, you have to come in through this direction because the light blue area quite often floods. It's wetland area. So to get access to that area, it's not as easy as you think. This would give much easier access as you come in. You could go around, or when it's dry through this area, right access it. I will apologize. I dropped my notes. There is no intention whatsoever for Fox, New World Communications, or anyone to redevelop this property. Honestly, we're putting in a 20-year investment into this property. There's no need for this cross-access. In addition to the security concerns that we have and what expense we may have to take to put in additional security levels of cameras, et cetera, to keep an eye on the area. We are concerned about an open road that just dead ends to no curb or anything, causing water to flow directly onto our property, exacerbating some of the flooding conditions that we have in that area. And when that happens, we have access issues to some of these anchor posts. Additional flooding could cause a long-term maintenance issue that we are concerned about.
So just out of curiosity and understanding that you're not the applicant here, but it seems like a lot of the context of your discussion is that it's never going to be developed as residential. There's a comprehensive plan provision that requires connectivity between sites. Would you guys be willing to impose some sort of deed restriction on your property?
I would have to take that back to council, internal council, to verify that.
And I should let you know that it's not really my concern that you would, but this issue will be an issue at the county commission level, and I think you should give some consideration to the possibilities here because, again, that comprehensive plan provision exists. I do understand the point. I'll take that into consideration, but thought I'd throw that out so that you kind of see that.
I will do my best to get you an answer shortly. And well, I guess the other, looking over my notes, I guess that's about it, unless you have any further questions on this or the culvert or anything else.
I don't think so, but thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Okay, I just want to clear and make sure that we've taken all opposition testimony. Anybody out there that needed to add anything else?
Thank you, Mr. Scarlett. We appreciate
All right,
it.
anything from staff?
Yeah, I think it'd be appropriate to hear from James so he can read the condition, because I think as again, our preference is, we're recommending that the stub out be maintained. The applicant proposed a fencing condition. Our preference is for the, right of way to remain unfenced, but in recognition of the discussions they've had, I think we have a proposal that we feel that we can accept regarding fencing that maintains and provides for the step out, but also addresses the issues that the applicant and the opposition have been discussing. And James can read that in the record now.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ratliff?
Yes, hi. James Ratliff for the Record Transportation Review Section. Just a couple things, and just to clarify our position, I think Brian summed it up, which is essentially that, the applicant proposed this with that stub out, and so I know that they said that they would be okay with removing it, but that would change our recommendation. We would not be able to support the project without that stub out. And as you mentioned, and that's essentially because of the Land Development Code policies, just to put them briefly on the record, I won't read them, but 60201A, 13, 15, and 16, as well as the South Shore Area-Wide Systems Plan, Transportation Objective 3E. We again understand what the applicant's saying with regard to their intended and current use of the property. However, we really go by, and I think that was to the point you were trying to make earlier, we go by the future land use of that property and looking at its future potential, and that is RP2, future land use. So they may not be intending to do that, but that certainly could happen, that it redevelop in the future. So, but we did hear their concerns, and so we worked today to
Just out of curiosity, can you hear me, James?
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I want to interject. Just out of curiosity, would it have made a difference to you if the property was deed restricted from future residential development?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that that's something that would need to be considered. If it,
Just wanted to hear. Go ahead.
Yeah, disallowed commercial and residential development, certainly, absolutely something that should be considered. With respect to the fencing condition, we understand that that's that the need for security is there. Again, this isn't going directly onto their property. This would be wholly contained within the subject PD. And the condition that should you decide to retain access, that step out within your recommendation, that we would like to see, which we believe addresses the adjacent property owners' concerns, would be, the new condition would read, the developer shall construct a 6-foot-high opaque fence within and across the public right-of-way for the western access stub-out. Such fence shall be temporary and may be removed in the future by Hillsborough County to facilitate access to the adjacent property upon its development or redevelopment. Additionally, A, the homeowners association or similar entity for the subject property shall be required to maintain such fence until its removal. And B, in addition to any temporary end-of-roadway treatment/signage required by the MUTCD, the developer shall place a sign indicating that the stub-out is a, quote, future roadway connection, end quote. We would also propose there to be a new prior to certification condition, which states that within the legend, change, quote, future cross-access, end quote, to read, quote, access stub-out hyphen see conditions of approval, end quote. And really, whichever way you decide to go, that's something that we did note that needed to be cleaned up.
I'm a little worried that we lost your trailing off at the end of that last condition. Could you read it one more time? Because if we don't get it here, we'll never get it.
Certainly. Was that the prior to certification condition or the zoning condition?
The change condition.
Okay, so the prior to certification condition would say that within the legend, change, quote, future cross access, end quote, to read, quote, access stub out hyphen see conditions of approval, end quote. And so, Mr. Hearing Officer, essentially what the issue we identified, and whichever way you decide to go on this issue in your report, we noted that was incorrectly labeled on the site plan as a cross-access stub-out, which has a very specific meaning under the Land Development Code. Indeed, that this is proposed to be a regular access stub-out a regular public roadway stub out. So cross-access has just a little specific meaning, and we wanted to make sure that got corrected either way we went.
Thank you, James.
Thank you.
Okay, if nothing else from staff, then the applicant will have final rebuttal.
Amy Corbett again. I do actually have that email on my iPad, so if you lost any part of that and would like me to read it here live, I can also read it.
Why don't you just make sure
Okay.
we get it?
Okay, new condition, the developer shall construct a 6-foot-high opaque fence within and across the public right-of-way for the western access stub-out. Such fence shall be temporary and may be removed in the future by Hillsborough County to facilitate access to the adjacent property upon its redevelopment. And it's actually in parentheses, development. Additionally, comma, A, the homeowners association or similar entity for the subject property shall be required to maintain such fence until its removal, and B, in addition to any temporary end of roadway treatment signage required by the MUTCD, the developer shall place a sign indicating that the stub out is a quote-unquote future roadway connection. And then there's a new prior to certification condition within the legend change quote-unquote future cross-access to quote-unquote access stub out -C conditions of approval, end quote.
Thank you.
And if I could get the presentation back up. Yes. Yeah, we're quite done. I'll talk. I agree with New World. I think we're in agreement on where we landed in our discussions and reached a mutually agreeable resolution to their issues and certainly understand their cross-access concerns, but also understand staff. And again, we will defer to whatever your pleasure is with respect to that. I did want to spend a brief amount of time talking about one of the emails that were submitted from a party of record. It is from a property owner. It was from the Grawl property, and they are directly across the street. I think Isabel alluded to that before. This is an exhibit showing we're 281 feet from the house to the back of the 100-foot buffer. We are providing that extensive screening. The email that was in the record when it was originally placed in the record did not have a return email address associated with it, so it was unable to tell who it was from, other than that I could match the last name from the property owner with this property. I did finally finally get from staff confirmation of that email address. Apparently they did copy me back in July, but it went into my spam folder. I did reach out via email to them on Friday to ask them to come and get in contact with us and see if there was anything we could do to address their concerns. I received no response. There was a late filed email that was sent on Monday from that property owner, but that is not properly in the record and cannot be considered by anyone for reference at this case. But generally speaking, their concerns were transportation, substandard roads, school concurrency, and I think we adequately addressed those this evening with Mr. Henry's testimony with respect to the improvements to the roadway system. And we all know that, stormwater design and school concurrency is dealt with at the time of site development. And I think that all of the substantial, competent expert testimony in the record supports that this proposed development is consistent with the comprehensive plan, the land development code, and compatible with the surrounding development. And just complete copy of the PowerPoint presentation is in the file. I also provided some additional copies of photographs of the improvements for you to peruse. And then there's some additional water management history between the property owners, just to sort of give you context. But again, those issues have been largely resolved and aren't really relevant this evening. And with that, do you have a question?
I do not.
No? Okay.
I'm questionless.
Are you done?
I am done.
There were no dogs barking at this time.
I'd like to
I'm so
close.
disappointed. But no, the level of service report is in there as well. Sorry. Yeah, it is. It is. And with that, we respectfully request your approval. And once again, I'll close out your hearing session.
Thanks very much. With that, we'll close PD 20-0479, and that's the last hearing of the evening. Thank you for everybody's help.